Chapter 2693. All of a sudden, Empress Mingjing raised her head and waved her hand at the corner of the tent. A wave of ripples flashed. Yanran took a few steps back, her face full of fear. Assassins! Kill them! Empress Mingjing reacted quickly. She stepped back quickly, allowing the 4 guards to take action. 4 middle-stage path masters. One could imagine how powerful they were. Fortunately, Great Emperor Wangtian spoke in time. Mingjing, it's me. Only then did Empress Mingjing notice that there were 2 men behind Yanran. One of them was Great Emperor Wangtian. Brother Wangtian? Empress Mingjing was pleasantly surprised. Stop! The 4 middle-stage path masters stopped immediately. She stepped forward and held Great Emperor Wangtian's hand. Brother, I was so worried about you. I thought something bad had happened to you. The 2 of them were not allies. Instead, they were very close relatives. This was extremely rare among the descendants of the Time Master. The rest of the descendants of the Time Master all regarded each other as enemies. How could they be compared to the deep affection of the 2 people in front of her? Great Emperor Wangtian said in shame, I was useless. I couldn't resist the enemy and ended up alone. Thanks to Miss Yanran's help, I was able to come here successfully. Hearing this, Yanran frowned. She had attacked him, protected him all the way, and escorted him here. It was all Su Yu's credit. She was just following Su Yu's instructions. Why did Great Emperor Wangtian ignore Su Yu and put all the credit on her? It was hard to understand. Empress Mingjing immediately cupped her fists at Yanran and said gratefully, Thank you for saving my life. As she spoke, she looked at Su Yu, who was beside Yanran. This is? She asked Great Emperor Wangtian. Great Emperor Wangtian said casually. He is also the one who saved me. The word also seriously weakened Su Yu's role. However, it wasn't completely useless. It was hard to tell what was wrong. Oh, I see. Empress Mingjing nodded, mistakenly thinking that Su Yu was just Yanran's attendant. Empress Mingjing said enthusiastically, Now that the outside world is in a fierce battle, it's not easy to leave. Why don't you rest here for now and find a way to leave when the battle subsides? Su Yu nodded. Of course, there's no problem. The sky-gazing monarch let out a long sigh of relief, feeling extremely relaxed. Lady Yanran, thank you for taking care of me along the way. Why don't I give you face and treat you to a meal alone? Heavenly Emperor Gazing Sky was only grateful to Yanran. Or perhaps he was extremely interested. Yanran said bluntly, Sorry, I want to rest. The Heavenly Gazing Emperor was disappointed and said, All right, I will thank Lady Yanran when I have the time. Under Empress Mingjing's arrangement, Su Yu and Yanran were taken away to rest. Their guest rooms were not far from each other. Not long after the arrangements were made, Yanran came to Su Yu's guest room. Senior, what should we do next? The number of experts by Empress Mingjing's side is beyond our expectations. Yanran could not help but feel apprehensive. It wasn't just Empress Mingjing's cultivation. The guards around him were all extraordinarily powerful. It would be extremely difficult to make a move against him. Let's just wait and see, Su Yu said. Yanran nodded. After a moment of hesitation, she said, Senior, Heavenly Emperor Gazing Sky doesn't seem to harbor any ill intentions towards me. She wasn't stupid. How could she not sense that the Heavenly Emperor Gazing Sky's attitude towards her was very unusual? Su Yu laughed involuntarily. You probably won his heart by saving the damsel in distress. Yanran blushed and said, You're so annoying. How dare you make fun of me, Senior? Inform me if you have any instructions for me. I will return to my room first. Yanran left in a hurry. Her face was slightly flushed. Unbeknownst to her, in a certain room, a crystal ball was placed in front of the Heavenly Emperor. The scene from earlier was reflected in it. The blushing expression on Yanran's face was clearly visible. A hint of jealousy appeared on his face. Is this what you meant by wanting to rest? She would rather stay in the room with Su Yu and do something shameful than have dinner with him alone? Right at that moment, Empress Mingjing walked in. Brother Wangtian, I have something to discuss with you. The Heavenly Emperor put away the crystal ball immediately and smiled. What is it, Mingjing? Empress Mingjing frowned and said, My people and resources can't be wasted forever. Sooner or later, they will be depleted. We need to plan ahead. The Heavenly Emperor nodded. I understand that. Staying here was only a temporary measure. Empress Mingjing hesitated. May I ask, Brother Wangtian, how did you pass through the many battlefields and come to this place? She hoped to leave the cave quietly with the help of the method they used to enter. The Heavenly Emperor was very calm. He said, It was the man named Su Yu. He has a strange spiritual pet that can conceal a person's scent and pass through the seal. Is it that magical? Empress Mingjing said in surprise. She hesitated for a moment and said, Then, I will discuss it with him and see if he can take us away quietly in the near future. Unexpectedly, the Heavenly Emperor rolled his eyes. Why go through so much trouble? Can't we just take that spiritual pet? The Heavenly Emperor said in a matter-of-fact manner. Empress Mingjing shook her head and said, We can't do that. That Su Yu is one of your saviors, isn't he? Isn't it ungrateful to take someone else's belongings before repaying him? There was a reason why Empress Mingjing could gather a group of strong men around her. Her broad-mindedness was the reason why those strong men were loyal to her. The Heavenly Emperor said disapprovingly, What kind of savior is he? Without him, I could have escaped, but it would have been slightly more difficult. What he said was true. It was as if it was someone else who was filled with despair when the city fell. Now, she was denying all of Su Yu's credit. It was ridiculous and hateful. Is that so? Empress Mingjing didn't understand the situation at the time and didn't quite understand. However, she still shook her head firmly. We are in a difficult situation now and need help. We can't take someone else's treasures and make an enemy out of them. You don't have to worry about this. I will discuss it with that human. At most, we will give him more rewards. We are far from taking his belongings. The Heavenly Emperor looked at the back of Empress Mingjing as she left and sighed. Sigh, how soft-hearted. When it is time to fight for the position of the master, one should be decisive, the Heavenly Emperor said calmly. Since you don't want to be the bad guy, let me be the bad guy. The next day, the Heavenly Emperor came to invite Yanran and Su Yu to attend the welcoming banquet with great enthusiasm. Brother Su, thanks to you for taking care of me along the way, I was able to arrive here safely. I will pay my respects to you later. Please don't refuse my kindness. Compared to the day before, his attitude had undergone a 180-degree change. Who was Su Yu? One could tell from a leaf that autumn was coming. He immediately concluded that Su Yu had ulterior motive. He secretly gave Yanran a look, and she understood tacitly. Chapter 2694. The banquet was hosted by Queen Mingjing. Although the situation of the war was dire, it was still enough to provide some resources to entertain Su Yu and the others. She toasted Yanran and Su Yu passionately. You too, I am deeply grateful that Brother Wangtian was able to return safely, Queen Mingjing said gratefully. Su Yu said, You are welcome. He drank the wine in front of him in one gulp. The wine was arranged by Queen Mingjing, so it was safe to drink. However, Great Emperor Wangtian's intentions were not reassuring. After hesitating for a moment, Queen Mingjing said, I have a presumptuous request that I would like to discuss with you too. Go ahead, Su Yu said. Queen Mingjing smiled bitterly. As you can see, I am just trying to survive by hiding here. Sooner or later, I will run out of food and ammunition. So, I hope to leave this place quietly with your help. I don't know if it is possible. Leave with their help? Su Yu thought about it. This was a good opportunity to capture Queen Mingjing alive. Although I am in dire straits, I still have some things that I can give to you. If you succeed, I will give you all the resources I have, Queen Mingjing said. She was exceptionally generous. Su Yu was slightly surprised. She could sense that Empress Mingjing was speaking the truth and was not being perfunctory. This descendant of the Time Master was indeed a little different from other descendants. Well, when do you plan to leave? Su Yu asked. Queen Mingjing said thoughtfully, 10 days later. I will try my best to take away the soldiers who have followed me for many years. A small number of them would be left behind to continue fighting the enemy at the entrance of the cave, pretending that the queen was still inside. The rest would not have to be sacrificed. This was the polar opposite of the waning Moon Queen, who had sacrificed nearly 1,000 of her Path Masters. Su Yu's impression of this descendant of the Time Master had changed quite a bit. All right, within 10 days you should prepare yourself, Su Yu promised. At that moment, Great Emperor Wangtian said, Su Yu, can you release your spiritual pet for everyone to see? Queen Mingjing's face was filled with curiosity. She also wanted to know what kind of spiritual pet possessed such great power. Su Yu thought about it and did not refuse. It was not a bad thing to just take a look. With a wave of his palm, the little Qilin was released. It lazily lay on the ground, occasionally releasing the power of primal chaos. Power of chaos? Empress Mingjing was shocked. It is indeed a divine beast with extraordinary talent. As far as she knew, the power of chaos only appeared in an extremely small number of living creatures. It was no wonder that this beast could lead them across the battlefield and disregard the seal to reach this place. With it around, I can finally be at ease, Empress Mingjing said slowly. Su Yu wore a smile as he stored the small Qilin in his spatial storage tool. Meanwhile, the sky-gazing martial monarch suddenly spoke. Can I have another look? I feel that this little Qilin seems familiar. Déjà vu? Little Qilin should be unique in this world. Staring at the great Emperor Wangtian, Su Yu became vigilant and said, The little Qilin is afraid of strangers and doesn't like to be disturbed. As he spoke, he put the spatial storage device into his pocket. The sky-gazing heavenly monarch said with displeasure, We are now in the same boat. What do you mean by this? Grasshopper? Su Yu smiled without saying a word. He and Yanran were not trapped, they could leave at any time. However, it was difficult for the great Emperor Wangtian to leave. What was with this attitude? Empress Mingjing tugged at him immediately and said, Brother Wangtian, don't talk nonsense. How could he say something that would offend someone? The great Emperor Wangtian shook off her hand and stared straight at Su Yu. With a gloomy face, he said, Now I have reason to suspect that you are up to no good. Others might have the right to say that, but he didn't. If Su Yu was up to no good, he would have been decapitated. Brother Wangtian, what are you talking about? Empress Mingjing was really anxious. She couldn't understand the great Emperor Wangtian. The latter turned a deaf ear to her and continued to stare at Su Yu. I'll give you 2 choices. First, hand over the small Qilin to me temporarily to prove that you have no ulterior motives. Second, I'll take coercive measures against you. The atmosphere suddenly became tense. Moreover, it was the great Emperor Wangtian who was acting recklessly. Empress Mingjing was very clear when it came to matters of right and wrong. She raised her eyebrows and glared at the great Emperor Wangtian. Shut up. Don't you maliciously hurt people again. Su Yu and Yanran weren't their servants who could leave and stay as they pleased. How could they have any ulterior motives? The great Emperor Wangtian acted as if they owed him something, which was really inappropriate. Unexpectedly, the great Emperor Wangtian looked at her and said disappointedly, Mingjing, you are not suitable to lead. Leave the rest to me. You can just watch from the side. What did he mean? Empress Mingjing was stunned. Then, she realized something and said, 4 guards, come here. However, the 4 personal guards who used to be on call didn't listen to her at all. Have they betrayed me? Empress Mingjing's heart sank. When did they betray me? Who instigated them? At that moment, the great Emperor Wangtian chuckled. 4 guards, come here. Swish. 4 shadows flashed and appeared behind the great Emperor Wangtian, standing neatly and respectfully. They didn't listen to Empress Mingjing's summons but listened to the orders of the great Emperor Wangtian, an outsider. "Did you betray me?" Empress Mingjing said in disbelief. To be exact, the great emperor had also betrayed her. He had instigated discord among her people and made them his confidants. The great Emperor Wangtian smiled lightly. "Don't make it sound so bad. I am only leading them on your behalf. When this is over, I will return them to you." Empress Mingjing was so angry that her chest was heaving up and down. She stared at the 4 guards and asked, "Why did you betray me?" The 4 guards sighed. "The great Emperor Wangtian is right. If we follow you, we will only gradually exhaust ourselves and die a horrible death. We need to take the initiative to attack and seize any chance of survival." Many days of despair had made them more eager to survive. Therefore, under the incessant instigation of the great emperor, their loyalty finally wavered and they completely sided with the great Emperor Wangtian. The 4 of them decided to switch allegiance to the great Emperor Wangtian. They would listen to his commands, seize the little Kailan, and take control of the situation. The great emperor raised his cup and drank it in one gulp. With a cold look in his eyes, he said, "Take Su Yu down." Empress Mingjing stood in front of him and shouted, "Who dares?" She looked at the great Emperor Wangtian with her beautiful eyes and tried to persuade him one last time. "Brother Wangtian, people can't be ungrateful. Without him, you would have been dead a long time ago. How can you treat others like this?" However, the great Emperor Wangtian was more confident than anyone else. "I, the great Emperor Wangtian, have many tricks up my sleeve. I don't need a little human to save me. Without him, I can still escape." The great Emperor Wangtian said stiffly. His eyes turned cold. "Empress Mingjing, step aside, or I will capture you as well." Chapter 2695. Empress Mingjing stared at the great emperor, her eyes full of disappointment. In her memory, the great emperor was resourceful and cared for her. Now that she had encountered such a disaster, she finally saw him clearly. Ungrateful and ungrateful. Not only had he betrayed his savior, but he had also betrayed his sister. She had taken him in out of kindness, but what had happened to him? He had instigated her own people to betray her. "Brother Wangtian, don't make any more mistakes. If you turn back now, I will still recognize you as my brother." Empress Mingjing looked disappointed. However, since when did the stubborn sky-gazing emperor ever have true family love? In his eyes, Empress Mingjing was just a tool that could be used slightly. "Come on, take down Empress Mingjing," Great Emperor Wangtian said coldly. Empress Mingjing took out a defensive treasure given to her by the Time Master and said angrily, "Who dares?" The 4 guardians did not dare to act rashly. Once that treasure was activated, it would kill. Great Emperor Wangtian had a slight headache. There were 2 reasons why he was afraid of Empress Mingjing. One was because she was an expert. The other was because she had yet to use the treasure of the Time Master. "Mingjing, don't mess around. You and I are family." Great Emperor Wangtian immediately changed his expression to that of family love. It was as if the person who wanted to capture Empress Mingjing was someone else. Empress Mingjing said coldly, "Get out of my way." Great Emperor Wangtian shouted, "What do you want?" There was a hint of anxiety on his face, because he had already vaguely realized what Empress Mirror was planning. As expected, Empress Mingjing said, "Can you take me away from this place?" Anyway, his people had been secretly taken over by Great Emperor Wangtian. Why should she stay? Su Yu said calmly, "Sure." Hearing this, the sky-gazing emperor's face was filled with anxiety. "Mingjing, are you trying to get me killed?" Great Emperor Wangtian scolded. Empress Mingjing was utterly disappointed. Wasn't stealing her military power the same as getting her killed? Now, he was reprimanding her for going too far like a victim? In her heart, she no longer had any expectations for this brother of hers. The cruel reality had exposed her true nature. "Let's go," the Mirror Empress said. Su Yu looked at Empress Mingjing with a complicated expression, nodded, and said, "All right, little Kylin, come out." Whoosh! The small Kylin drilled out of its storage space and released a wave of energy that engulfed Su Yu and the others. The sky-gazing Emperor could do nothing but watch them leave. He was filled with regret and hatred. Only now did he realize that he had neglected the essentials. So what if they took away Empress Mirror's military power? Wouldn't they still have to hole up here and be slowly nibbled away by the enemy? He shouldn't have treated Su Yu so harshly from the beginning. But regret was useless. However, right at that moment, an incomparably astonishing ripple suddenly came from the heavily guarded cave entrance. A destructive force erupted from within, killing all the experts guarding the cave entrance. At the same time, countless enemies poured into the netherworld realm from the outside world and started a massacre. It was the 7 unparalleled strong men in fiery red robes. They had tracked Su Yu and the others to this place and launched an attack to break through the cave's defenses. The sky-gazing Emperor's expression changed drastically. Xiao Qin watched as the 7 fiery red-robed figures slowly descended from the cave entrance. The wine cup in his hand fell to the ground with a pah sound. His face was pale and full of despair. The fear of being dominated by the 7 horrifying existences welled up in his heart again. "Don't leave me behind! Save me!" The sky-gazing Emperor screamed in desperation. How could he still have his arrogant confidence at this moment? All he had was fear. Su Yu and the others who hadn't gone far stopped in their tracks. Empress Mirror looked at the desperate sky-gazing Emperor and couldn't bear to see him die. She said in a low voice, "Although he is worse than a beast, can you give him a chance?" Su Yu thought for a moment and nodded slightly. He had no intention of letting the sky-gazing Emperor go. He planned to come back and take the sky-gazing Emperor's life after stabilizing Empress Mirror. But unexpectedly, the arrival of the 7 mysterious men in fiery red robes disrupted his plan. He could only bring the sky-gazing Emperor along with them. When the group returned, the small Kylin slapped its claws on the sky-gazing Emperor's face. "Damn it, you useless thing, come here!" When the sky-gazing Emperor realized that they had returned, he was pleasantly surprised again. He bent his body and made his way in. The 4 mid-stage Tao Lord powerhouses also followed him in with tense expressions. Right at that moment, the enemies attacked the pavilion. However, the small Kylin had already led them to the entrance. As long as they made their way through, they would reach the outside world. However, the 7 mysterious men in fiery red robes seemed to have sensed something. They conjured their spells and launched attacks at the entrance. A loud rumble was heard. A fiery red lion appeared and attacked the cave in a frenzy. Su Yu and the others had no choice but to retreat. The powerful aftershocks of the attacks broke the aura of the small Kylin and exposed the group. Empress Mirror's heart skipped a beat. However, when her attention was focused on the enemies, she felt a sharp pain in her palm. When she looked down, she saw that the sky-gazing Emperor had taken advantage of her distraction to cut off her palm and snatch the Time Master's magical treasure from her palm. His Empress Mirror immediately reassembled her palm and stared at the sky-gazing Emperor angrily. The sky-gazing Emperor held the Time Master's magical treasure in his hand and sneered. "It's best if I control the Time Master's magical treasure. You are too selfish and don't know how to look at the big picture." At that moment, he controlled the Time Master's magical treasure. He also controlled 4 strong men in the middle stage of the Path Master. It was entirely possible for him to rush out of the netherworld realm. "Miss Yanran." The sky-gazing Emperor looked at Yanran and said, "A nobody like Su Yu is not a good match. If you follow me, your future will be bright." Before he could finish, Yanran sneered coldly. "Follow a despicable person like you?" At that moment, the sky-gazing Emperor actually felt good about himself. He was already in such a miserable state, yet he still refused to let go of his identity as the descendant of the Time Master? What was even more ridiculous was that he still wanted to compare himself to Suyu. To be honest, could he even compare himself to Suyu? The sky-gazing emperor's expression froze. He shook his head and sighed. Sigh. You are a beauty, but why are you so blind? You don't want me, who has the potential to become the Space Master, but you choose a useless human. Forget it, a woman like you is not worthy of my attention. Take care of yourself. The sky-gazing emperor rose into the sky under the protection of the 4 middle-stage path masters. Suyu did not stop him. Since the 7 mysterious men in fiery red robes had attacked, they would not give the people inside a chance to leave easily. As expected, the sky-gazing emperor had just rushed to the entrance of the cave when a secret technique that had been left behind in advance descended. A fire lion descended with a roar. The sky-gazing emperor was startled and hurriedly activated the only remaining Time Master's magical treasure. One was a Heavenly Law Master's attack, while the other was a Heavenly Law Master's defense. Chapter 2696. The 4 mid-stage Tao Lords bore the brunt of the shockwave and were crushed on the spot. As for the sky-gazing emperor, he was not any better. His entire body was torn apart by the explosion, and blood spurted out of his mouth as he was sent flying back. His body landed heavily at Empress Mingjing's feet. Not even in his wildest dreams would the Heavenly Emperor have expected that not only would he fail to leave the Netherworld realm, but he would also be seriously injured and on the verge of death. Mingjing, save me! Heavenly Monarch used the same trick again. However, before he could finish speaking, Empress Mingjing slammed her palm into his chest. Then, with a vicious twist, he crushed the heart. The sky-gazing great monarch widened his eyes in indignation as his life drained away bit by bit. Finally, it disappeared as he died. A wisp of time domain left the body of the sky-gazing emperor. He fused into Empress Mirror's body. Upon seeing this, Suyu finally understood why the crystal ball of the time domain had been absorbed by him. This was because whoever killed a descendant of the Time Sovereign would be able to absorb the descendant's time domain. As long as this person was a time domainer after obtaining Great Tharch Wangtian's time domain, the Mirror Empress's domain level immediately approached the advanced level. I'm sorry. I was blind and almost got you guys into trouble, Empress Mingjing said dejectedly. She had never thought that she would be the one to obtain the bloodline power of the sky-gazing martial monarch. It doesn't matter, as I expected it. Suyu patted the small Kylan's head and said, Let's go. With great monarch Wang Tian leading the way, it was much easier for them to leave after activating the secret technique at the cave entrance. The small Qilin nodded, and immediately used a secret technique to conceal them, smoothly leaving the Netherworld realm. They calmly passed through the battlefield and landed at the border of the Heavenly Awakening Realm and the Nether Realm. Everyone stood on the ruins, but the atmosphere between them was a little strange. In the end, Suyu asked the small Kylan to stop. Empress Mirror immediately took a few steps back, maintaining her distance. He was already on guard. Back in the Netherworld realm, they still had a good relationship, but that might not be the case after coming out. I am very grateful for your kindness in saving my life. However, I have nothing, so I am unable to repay all of you at the moment. If I have the chance to become the Master of Time, I will definitely repay all of you. Empress Mingjing slowly retreated. Yenron's heart tightened. They had gone through a lot of trouble to bring Empress Mingjing out. How could he let her go just like that? However, Suyu said, Perhaps if you stay by my side, you won't be able to escape death in the end. But if you leave me, you will die even earlier. Empress Mirror did not think much of it. Although I'm not talented, I'm not as useless as the sky-gazing emperor. I'm confident that I can survive on my own. Yenran sneered. With a flip of her palm, she took out a treasure of the ruler of time. Shockingly, it was an advanced rank. Take a guess. How many times can this kill you? Yanran said disdainfully. If Senior wanted to kill you, would you still be alive? Seeing this item, Empress Mirror sucked in a breath of cold air. Didn't they say that Xiaohao got all the Time Sovereign's treasures? Despite her surprise, Empress Mirror did understand. With this object, if Su Yu really wanted to take his life, he would have already taken it from the Netherworld realm. Even if she had thousands of soldiers and horses by her side, she would not be able to escape death. She could live until now because Su Yu had no intention of killing her. Although I serve a descendant of the Time Sovereign, we all agree that the Time Sovereign's competition has ulterior motives, Su Yu said calmly. So, until the last moment, I don't want to kill a Time Sovereign. Especially since you are a good person. At least she knew how to be grateful. It would be a pity to kill such a person just like that. It was better to wait until the last moment to make a decision. If killing could be avoided and a Time Sovereign was chosen, why would they fight each other? Empress Mirror thought for a short while, then nodded and agreed. Please forgive me if I offended you just now. Staying in front of this senior and relying on the powerful Time Sovereign's treasures, she could survive until the end. As for whether she would live or die in the end, it was up to fate. Very well, now follow me to the Netherworld realm. The descendant of the Time Sovereign that I serve should have finished his battle. Empress Star Rain had so many Time Sovereign's treasures, so she should be able to snatch a descendant of the Time Sovereign. The entire Time Domain's Time Sovereign's competition was almost over. Next, it was time for the final battle. The group headed for the Netherworld realm. Shockingly, the Netherworld realm was even more ruined than the Heavenly Awakening realm. The whole world was almost destroyed and fragmented. As far as the eye could see, not even scorched earth was left. Only the boundless defensive formations were damaged and full of cracks. The Netherworld realm is completely finished, Empress Mirror sighed. Even if a new ruler is born, the Netherworld realm can never recover. What is the meaning of the competition for the Time Sovereign? Empress Mirror sighed. Soon, Su Yu and the others rushed to the northern part of the Netherworld realm. In the void, on a floating island, Su Yu met up with the army led by Empress Star Rain and Great Emperor Mingxin. Nearly half of their troops had been lost. Brother! Empress Star Rain rushed over in surprise, then pouted. My Time Sovereign's treasures are all used up. Su Yu took out the extra ones and handed them to her. I still have a lot left. Use them without worry. After he had used up his treasures, there was still Yanran's. The Time Sovereign's treasures that the two of them controlled accounted for more than half of all the treasures. Empress Star Rain smiled slightly and said proudly, Brother, I caught Great Emperor Ziqiong. She waved her hand, and a group of people came over with Great Emperor Ziqiong, who was tied up. You didn't kill him? Su Yu was surprised. Empress Star Rain was confused. I think the competition for the Time Sovereign is very strange and suspicious, so I let him live for now. It won't be too late to kill him later. Even the simple-minded Empress Star Rain felt that something was wrong. This time, the competition for the Time Sovereign was really problematic. In this way, the overall competition for the Time Sovereign had temporarily come to an end. The other descendants of the Time Sovereigns had been killed, leaving only Empress Star Rain, Great Emperor Mingxin, Great Emperor Mingjin, Great Emperor Ziqiong, and Xiaohao. The new descendants of the Time Sovereign would be born from them. Right at this moment, a long laugh that shocked the Netherworld realm ran through the sky and earth. Since we're both here, let's have a showdown and decide who's the stronger one. That arrogant and condescending voice, who else could it be other than Xiaohao? Boom, boom. In the distant sky, a blood cloud rumbled. A moment ago it was still very far away. But in the blink of an eye, it suddenly appeared in front of them. It was the time domain, a high-level time domain, which was very close to the Yuan level. Xiaohao sat on a golden throne in the middle of the blood clouds. He looked like a Brahma god looking down on them. Very good, I thought Star Rain and Mingxin were in the bag, but I didn't expect you to hide so deeply. You came to the heavenly awakening realm and the netherworld realm to ruin my plans. Chapter 2697. In his plan, he would first subdue the heavenly awakening realm and the nether realm. Then, he would reap the benefits and defeat the entire dream-divided realm. In this way, he could achieve the position of the supreme ruler. Everything had been going smoothly. All the descendants of the Time Masters had been captured. Unexpectedly, Empress Star Rain and Great Emperor Mingxin had appeared out of nowhere. The former had snatched Great Emperor Ziqiong. Su Yu had snatched 2 descendants of the Time Master, completely destroying his plan. He was forced to show up in advance and fight with them. Empress Mingjing shouted in a low voice, "Xiaohao, please calm down." She pointed to the destruction around them and the broken defensive formation. "Look at the time realm now. Don't you think it's strange?" All the participants had sensed that something was wrong. "Even if you become the Time Master, what is the point of obtaining such a time realm?" she asked. But Xiaohao only responded with a sneer. "I'm not blind. Why can't I understand?" Xiaohao was very calm. He was unexpectedly calm. "In fact, I know more than you do." Xiaohao looked at them with pity in his eyes. "So, I must become the Time Master." Behind him, countless strong men appeared. The 7 mysterious men in fiery red robes were among them. In addition, there were 7 other mysterious men in black robes. These 14 people stood respectfully behind Great Emperor Xiaohao. Empress Star Rain stared at the mysterious men in black robes and said solemnly, "Brother, be careful. Those 7 mysterious men in black robes are very powerful." Even without her warning, Su Yu knew. But where did they come from? Where did Xiaohao recruit such powerful men? The 7 of them could resist the attack of the Heaven Law Master. The strength of the 7 of them must have reached the peak of the Road Master level. In the Time Realm, there shouldn't be anyone so powerful. Xiaohao grinned. "Do you want to die a quick death or a painful death? If you want to die a quick death, surrender. If you want to suffer, you can continue to resist." Hearing this, everyone on Su Yu's side was on guard. Su Yu made the first move and gave Yanran a look. Without hesitation, the latter took out a middle-level Time Master treasure. She activated it immediately. Immediately, 100 pitch-black arrows of light pierced through the void and bombarded them. Xiaohao glared at Yanran and scolded, "You traitor!" With a wave of his hand, he also took out a mid-grade defensive magic treasure. A golden rooster suddenly appeared and crowed on the spot. All the roosters lost their effect. Then, the 14 mysterious people behind him attacked at the same time. The 7 mysterious men in fiery red robes were still using the fiery red lion. The 7 mysterious black-robed men unleashed a pitch-black python. The 2 of them whistled over, carrying with them an unrivaled might as they crushed everyone. Su Yu and Yanran each took out a low-grade Time Master's magical treasure and crushed it. Water and fire intertwined to form a tornado, sweeping forward crazily. Both sides immediately collided with each other, and the world-destroying shock waves that shot out caused the already fragmented defensive formation to become even more fragmented. However, this was only the beginning. Xiaohao snorted coldly and casually threw out a Time Master's magical treasure. "Then let's see who will have the last laugh." The Mingjing Empress shouted in a low voice, "Xiaohao, since you are so stubborn, don't blame me for helping them." She activated the Time Domain Bloodline and activated the Time Freeze Domain, freezing the opponent's attack and even the 14 people. The Star Rain Empress, the Mindful Great Emperor, and the Great Emperor Ziqiong also activated the Time Domain Bloodline. This was, after all, a battle between the descendants of the Time Master. The battle between them was unavoidable. Haha, good. I'll show you what a genius is and what a fool is. Xiaohao laughed, slapped the throne, and jumped up. Time Freeze Domain. 3 solid hourglasses of time appeared above his head. The 4th one was particularly blurry. If even the 4th one was solid, then Xiaohao would reach the Yuan level and become the Supreme Time Master. On the other hand, the Star Rain Empress and the other three people, except for the Mingjing Empress, who had fused with the Sky Gazer and was close to a high-level domain, the other domains were generally only at the primary and middle level. The four of them combined their domains, but they were still no match for Xiaohao. Xiaohao's time freeze was enough to shatter everyone's time domain. The Fire Lion and the Venomous Python were freed. Instead, it was their side that had fallen into a process of time slowing down. The Fire and Water Tornado was immediately crushed by the Fire Lion and the Venomous Python, and it pounced toward the two of them. At this critical moment, the 1,000 Earth Path Masters behind them all launched their domain attack. One person's domain attack was not scary. 10 people's domain did not fear it. 100 people might be able to block it. What about 1,000 people? The domain of 1,000 Earth Path Masters merged to form a vast world that pressed forward. The Fire Lion and the Venomous Python were powerful, but they were forced back by the 1,000 Earth Path Masters' domain. In the end, it shattered with a loud boom. The 14 experts all grunted and spat out a mouthful of blood. Xiaohao narrowed his eyes. "You're courting death." Time stripping. Time flowed in Xiaohao's eyes. He swept his gaze over the 1,000 Earth Path Masters. Their merged domains were weakened and shattered by the time stripping. Why is my domain gone? Why can't I release it? The 1,000 Earth Path Masters were shocked. They even discovered that their bodies were rapidly aging at a speed visible to the naked eye. That was the power of time stripping. Could forcibly take away their lives. Time reversal. Seeing this, the Empress Star Rain and the others immediately launched their attack. Thus, the Earth Path Master's loss of vitality was alleviated. Both sides fell into a delicate balance. For a moment, no one could do anything to the other. Suyu seized the opportunity and took out 2 palm-sized doors at the same time. One was black and the other was white. With a toss of his palm, the two descended from the sky, one in front and one behind, trapping Xiaohao and the 14 mysterious experts in the center. Then, the 2 giant doors opened at the same time. From within the door of White Feather, a sharp cry could be heard. A huge phoenix that blotted out the sky led a horde of golden phoenixes as it charged out. Xiaohao and the 14 mysterious experts were the first to be hit. Xiaohao's expression changed drastically. Door of White Feather. Wasn't the door of White Feather that he had sealed in the Blood Sea stolen? He glared at the man in the bamboo hat beside the Empress Star Rain. So it was him. However, the door had appeared so suddenly that he had no time to think. Chapter 2698. However, as soon as he finished speaking, a destructive wave of time exploded. That was Suyu activating the highest level time master magical treasure he had. At this critical moment, he launched an attack on Xiaohao. Xiaohao was caught off guard and could only resist with the time master magical treasure. In this way, he lost the best opportunity to freeze the phoenixes. The latter roared and rushed him and the 14 mysterious people into the Black Feather Gate. Suyu's eyes flashed. He was about to close the 2 gates and imprison them in the Netherworld realm forever. However, at this moment, the 14 mysterious people joined forces to perform a secret technique and forcibly held the Black Feather Gate. Xiaohao, you go first. Seizing the fleeting opportunity, Xiaohao returned first. Suyu clenched his 5 fingers and immediately held the Black Feather Gate completely. Before Xiaohao could react, he immediately called back the Black Feather Gate. Suyu and the others had no time to pay attention to the phoenixes who were fleeing in all directions. They surrounded Xiaohao. Only Xiaohao was left. It would no longer be difficult to deal with them. However, there was only a flicker of ferocity on Xiaohao's face, without the slightest hint of fear. With a pull of his palm, he tore off the cloak behind him, revealing his strong body and the ruler magical treasures hanging all over him. Okay. I will fight all of you alone. Xiaohao threw a time master magical treasure backhandedly. Suyu was not afraid and threw it back. Yanran also joined in. Xiao Hao threw another magical treasure into it, and the process kept repeating. The Star Rain Empress and the others watched the destructive Heaven Law Master level ruler magical treasures explode one after another, and they could only retreat with their scalps numb. This was not a battle they were qualified to participate in. The Time Master magical treasures of both sides were consumed at an alarming rate. In the end, they were all exhausted. However, no one could do anything to the other. The defensive formation was rumbling. It was the sound of being overwhelmed. Xiao Hao had used up all the Time Master magical treasures, but he still had no fear on his face. Now that you have used up all your Time Master magical treasures, you have nothing left to resist me, right? Xiao Hao sneered. It turned out that he had never used the Time Master magical treasure as a trump card. His trump card was something else. He slowly took out a withered wooden scepter. As soon as the scepter was taken out, the whole world seemed to quiet down. The eternal and unchanging time actually became chaotic. The countenances of Empress Star Rain and the others turned pale at the same time as they gazed at the item, and expressions of disbelief and even despair appeared on their faces. Xiao Hao laughed coldly. It seems I don't need to introduce it. You've already recognized it. It's the Sovereign's Scepter of Time, right? Hearing this, Su Yu's pupils contracted. The Scepter of Time was the magic treasure of the Time Chief Sovereign's true body. Its quality was so high that it had even attained the level of a quasi-saint artifact. No matter how powerful the Time Ruler's magic treasure in the Time Wilderness was, it was nothing in front of the Time Scepter. It was not worth mentioning. This was Xiao Hao's real trump card. Emperor Purple Jade shrieked in despair. Impossible! Why would the Time Sovereign give you the scepter? If that was the case, what was the point of fighting over the Time Dominator? They could just wait for Xiao Hao to devour them. Haha, that's why you've lost from the very beginning. Xiao Hao smiled coldly. From the very beginning, I've been the Time Dominus designated successor. What a joke. You bunch of people who are kept in the dark are still desperately struggling. Empress Star Rain found it hard to believe. Why did the Time Dominus do this? Since Xiao Hao had been designated as the successor, why did he deceive them for so many years? Why did he force them to fight for this day? Why did he destroy the Time Domain in the end? Why? Xiao Hao held the Time Scepter and tapped it lightly. An enormous wave of time fluctuations rippled out. Everyone's time was sucked away. Even Su Yu was no exception. In less than half an hour they would all die. However, this was not the full power of the Time Scepter. It was just a light tap. Xiao Hao laughed loudly. Since you are about to die, I will be merciful and tell you the truth. The so-called replacement of the Time Dominus was never decided by fighting, but by the Time Dominus himself. The successor of the Time Dominus will get all the inheritance of the Time Dominus, including the Time Scepter and the 14 personal guards of the Time Dominus. Sure enough, the so-called war to become the Time Dominus was really a lie that had deceived them for hundreds of millions of years. Empress Star Mirror's body trembled. She could not accept this cruel fact. Then, the Time Dominus should have made you the Time Dominus. Why did you lead us to kill each other? This is superfluous. Her question was the question that everyone wanted to ask. Xiao Hao laughed. Because the Time Dominus wants you to kill each other and destroy all the worlds in the Time Domain. This was the true meaning of the Time Dominus's struggle. Empress Star Mirror shook her head. There is no need. The Time Dominus can destroy it himself. Why use our war? This is unnecessary. With the power of the Time Dominus, it would not take long to destroy the Time Domain with the help of the Time Scepter. Why did he have to set up such a grand scheme? Wasn't it too troublesome? Xiao Hao's gaze passed through the defensive formation and looked towards the depths of the endless void. He murmured, because, in the Tao Abyss, there are some attacking existences that are staring at the Time Dominus. If the Time Dominus makes a move, they will come out of the Tao Abyss. Hearing this, everyone's hearts beat wildly. The Tao Abyss. The Tao Abyss again. Where was the Tao Abyss? What was in it that made the Time Dominus so afraid of it that they did not dare to act recklessly? Ordinary people think that the Time Dominus is the supreme existence that commands the world. Little do they know that they are constantly confronting the existences in the Tao Abyss, not daring to slack off. Empress Star Mirror took a deep breath, but she still did not understand. Then, why did the Time Dominus destroy their own territory? Xiao Hao said calmly, to wait for the destruction of the era in 20 years. He glanced at the defensive formation beneath his feet. This formation was already extremely weak and could no longer protect the land. The defensive formation of the 8-star civilization was jointly set up by the 8 great ancient gods. Its original purpose was to resist the destruction of the era. With this formation, the sacred mountain cannot completely destroy the 8-star civilization. So, they ordered the Time Dominus to think of ways to destroy the formation. They are restricted by the existences in the Tao Abyss and cannot act on their own, so they guided you to destroy it. I don't know about other domains, but the time domain has more or less achieved its goal. Knowing the shocking secret hidden within, everyone's limbs went cold. In the end, they were just pawns in the hands of the sacred mountain and the Time Dominus. Their goal was to make them destroy the talismans they had. The funniest thing was that they actually did as they were told, and even destroyed the defensive formation to pieces. Chapter 2699. Once the end of the era began, they, who were in an 8-star civilization, no longer had any defensive power. I see. Empress Mingjing looked at her own hands and felt ridiculous. The truth was so deceiving. What fight for dominance? From the very beginning, it was a trick to deceive them into killing each other. A lie to deceive them into putting a noose around their neck. The rest of the descendants of the rulers could not accept this cruel truth, and were stunned on the spot. Since you understand, you can leave your bloodlines to me and help me reach the Yuan level. Xiao Hao laughed. With the time scepter in his hand, Xiao Hao was the strongest in the world. Without the treasure of the time ruler, they could no longer compete with Xiao Hao. Their time was being rapidly taken away by the time scepter. However, at this moment, a magnificent 9-colored light shot up into the sky. Among the crowd behind Empress Star Rain, there was a creature with an oil lamp on his head and a 9-colored light all over his body. The 9-colored light was so intense that it was like an unparalleled flame. In an instant, it engulfed Empress Star Rain and the others. The time scepter in Xiao Hao's hand suddenly stopped absorbing the power of time from others and shook violently. Xiao Hao was caught off guard, and he staggered backward with the scepter, almost falling down. He looked over with a hint of surprise, and his face instantly became unsightly. The sacred mortal body? He couldn't believe that there was a sacred mortal body among the people of Empress Star Rain. Wasn't that a constitution that had been extinct long ago? Why were there still survivors? The 9-colored figure was Su Yu, who had activated the oil lamp. Similarly, the treasure of the time ruler was not his last trump card. His trump card was the 4 drops of the Emperor's blood. Now, they had finally come in handy. Although 1 drop of the Emperor's blood could only be used for a short while, it was enough to deal with Xiao Hao. Get lost! Su Yu pressed his 5 fingers toward the sky, and a giant 9-colored palm fell from the sky. Rumble! With a loud noise, Xiao Hao was crushed. He was almost crushed into dust. Time Ray! He raised the scepter high and hit the 9-colored palm. Suddenly, the 9-colored palm was pierced. But the remaining palm power still hit Xiao Hao's body. Puff! Xiao Hao was immediately slapped to the point his soul collapsed, and his body transformed into a ball of blood. Back then, when the waning Moon Empress controlled her sacred mortal body, she was able to contend against a low-rank ruler treasure. Moreover, Su Yu had a sacred mortal body. I'll return the taste of the Emperor's blood to you, Su Yu said coldly. At that time, Xiao Hao had taken out the fragment of Prince Xiaoyao, and Xiaohao had used half a drop of the prince's blood to activate the prince's ruler, which had almost killed Su Yu. He even indirectly killed Wen Shui. Today, he would have a taste of the power of the holy mortal body activated by the Emperor's blood. Empress Star Rain and the others were caught off guard. There was actually a sacred mortal body hidden in their midst? Moreover, a single blow had turned Xiaohao into a puddle of blood. However, how could Xiaohao die so easily with the scepter of time? Boundless time energy shot out of the time scepter, causing Xiaohao's body to return to before he was injured. In an instant, Xiaohao recovered. He shook his head, his eyes still filled with awe. Sacred mortal body, why do you, an outsider, want to meddle in the affairs of the Time Master? Xiaohao scolded from a distance. He probably didn't know that the sacred mortal body in front of him was the descendant of the ancient god Jiulong, who he had chased all over the place. Because you owe me your life. Su Yu's cold voice answered him. Destroy! With a furious roar, the nine-colored light on the surface of Su Yu's body rushed over like a raging flame. Xiaohao's face changed dramatically. Having experienced the horror of the nine-colored light, he had no confidence in dealing with it. However, if he fled like this, all his previous efforts would be in vain. Fight! Xiaohao roared. He stabbed the scepter of time in front of him and shouted in a low voice, Bloodline summoning! Gurgle! The sound of boiling water could be heard continuously. The time bloodline in Xiaohao's body was tumbling at an alarming speed. Empress Star Rain and the others looked pained. Their time bloodlines were responding, leaving their bodies bit by bit, merging with Xiaohao. That was the last secret technique that the Time Master had passed on to Xiaohao. If he still couldn't take away the time bloodlines of the descendants of the Time Masters at the last moment, then he would use bloodline summoning. At the cost of sacrificing part of the power of the Scepter of Time, he would forcibly take away the bloodlines of the descendants of the Time Masters for his own use. The seemingly long process was actually completed in an instant. The bloodlines of the descendants of the Time Master, including Empress Star Rain, were all taken away in an instant. However, before they had time to merge with Xiaohao's body, Xiaohao was destroyed by the nine-colored flames. His body and soul were immediately destroyed. The Scepter of Time immediately started to reverse time and saved him. However, the nine-colored flames that remained on Xiaohao's body were never extinguished. Xiaohao was then turned into ashes again. The Scepter of Time started to reverse time again. The cycle continued. Finally, with a cracking sound, a clear crack appeared on the Scepter of Time. First, it sacrificed part of its power, and then it consumed its power uncontrollably. Finally, it reached the point of exhaustion, and signs of damage appeared. This time, Xiaohao was destroyed. The damaged Scepter of Time could no longer fully restore him. It could only restore him to a state of serious injury. Fortunately, the nine-colored flames on Xiaohao's body had been consumed many times and were very weak. It could no longer destroy his body. However, at the risk of serious injury, Xiaohao still obtained all the time bloodlines as he had wished. The time domain in his body was fusing and expanding at an alarming rate. Once it reached the Yuan level, it would be the birth of the second Time Master. At that time, even the holy mortal body would no longer be able to contend against it. Su Yu's eyes sharpened. Once again, the nine-colored light swept across. However, at that moment, the Emperor's blood burned out, and the oil lamp began to dry up. Su Yu had no choice but to stop and pour in a drop of the Emperor's blood. However, taking advantage of this opportunity, Xiaohao activated time travel. In just a short moment, he had escaped without a trace. Su Yu's gaze swept across, shooting toward Baiming City of the Dream-Broken Realm. Xiaohao had escaped back to his lair. With a step, he instantly crossed half of the Heavenly Awakening Realm and arrived at the Dream-Broken Realm. Moreover, after half an incense stick of time, he appeared above Baiming City. In this short period of time, he had used another drop of the Emperor's blood. Now there was only one drop left. As his colorful eyes swept down, he immediately discovered that there was a hidden underground secret chamber under the ruins of Beiming City. In the secret chamber, Xiao Hao was vomiting blood continuously, lying on the ground. A blind middle-aged man was treating him. Xiao Hao said weakly, "Quick! Start quickly." It seemed like Xiao Hao had been waiting for this moment all along. The blind middle-aged man was none other than the golden-eyed Lang Jun. The golden-eyed Lang Jun immediately placed Emperor Xiao Hao on a spell in the secret chamber. The spell was extremely mysterious. Even Su Yu felt that it was extremely profound, and he could not see through it. Success or failure depends on today. The golden-eyed Lang Jun immediately activated the spell. His hollow eyes were filled with a trace of long-awaited excitement and agitation. Chapter 2700. Dazzling time and space auras shot out of the formation. Mysterious heavenly book characters flew out of the formation and attached to the surface of Xiao Hao's body. Inside his body, the extremely majestic time domain seemed to be resonating, seething and roaring like crazy. It was just like how Xiao Hao had forcefully activated his bloodline devour. Su Yu, who was still far away, suddenly felt that something was wrong. He opened a spatial storage artifact and looked inside. His expression changed drastically. Bai Yun and Hong Xian, who were in a coma, suddenly revealed a look of deep pain. Her soft body kept twisting. A pair of golden eyes silently opened. 2 rays of golden light flowed out from it. The light was like a stream of water. It left Bai Yun and Red Immortal's body and quickly flowed into the underground ruins. Su Yu made a grabbing motion in the air, trying to catch it. However, that was a bloodline, so it was impossible to grasp it. Whoosh! 2 rays of golden light descended into the ground and fused into Xiao Hao's body. Moreover, it began to fuse with the extremely dense time domain. The process was extremely painful. Xiao Hao let out heart-wrenching screams. "I can't. Stop right now!" Xiao Hao roared. His body was about to be completely crushed. Golden-eyed Lang Jun lowered his voice and comforted, "Don't give up. Don't you want to become a dual ruler that transcends time and space? Persevere. What awaits you is an unprecedented tomorrow." It turned out that Xiao Hao's ambition was not just to be the time dominator. He still wanted to become the ruler of space. However, he didn't have a spatial bloodline. Therefore, he had to first fuse the space bloodline into his body. The only way he could think of was to fuse with the Baiyun Red deity's bloodline. This was because the Baiyun Red deity's bloodline contained the bloodlines of both the Time Chief Sovereign and the Space Chief Sovereign. The bloodline of the Baiyun Red deity originated from her ancestor, the Tianyi Empress. The Tianyi Empress was a special existence that controlled both time and space. Her true identity was the illegitimate child of the Time Dominus and Space Dominus. Baiyun Hongxian had obtained the inheritance of the Tianyi Empress and possessed a double bloodline. If Xiao Hao could integrate the 2 bloodlines at this moment, it would be equivalent to possessing a strand of the space bloodline. Next, he used the invincible stance of the Time Chief Sovereign to sweep through the space domain. Which descendant of the Space Chief Sovereign could contend against him? He had been preparing for this plan for decades. He had waited for this day. Xiao Hao let out a hysterical roar amidst the boundless pain. The 2 golden bloodlines finally began to fuse with his pure time domain bloodline. The pain faded away at this moment. Xiao Hao felt as if he had gone through hell. His entire body was covered in sweat, and the unbearable pain lingered in his mind. If it happened again, Xiao Hao might not have the courage to accept the fusion. Fortunately, he had finally succeeded. He looked up to the sky and laughed helplessly. "Wait until my bloodline is completely integrated and I reach the elemental realm and have a wholly mortal body. Let's see what you can use to fight me then." However, a strange, hoarse laugh sounded in his ears. "Success! I've finally succeeded." Golden-eyed Playboy laughed heartily. His smile seemed to be even happier and more excited than Xiaohao's. It was as if he was the one who succeeded. Xiaohao narrowed his eyes and his lips curled into a cruel smile. Golden-eyed Langjun, you and your daughter have worked hard all these years. Why don't you rest in peace? They knew too many of his secret. Now, his value had been completely squeezed dry. What was the point of keeping them alive? With a thought, he activated time deprivation. With his current attainments in the time domain, would it be difficult for him to kill a weak golden-eyed playboy? Of course not. He could erase golden-eyed playboy from the world with just a thought. However, Xiaohao's expression suddenly changed. He realized that he could not activate his time domain. It was the golden bloodline that had fused with his body. He had suppressed his time domain. His heart suddenly sank. He panicked as if he had stepped off a cliff. He looked at golden-eyed playboy with difficulty. A strange smile appeared on his face. Emperor, are you surprised? Are you surprised? It really was him. Xiaohao's heart sank and he became more and more afraid. He had been tricked. He had been tricked by this blind man. What did you do to me? Xiaohao tried to stand up. However, his body was seriously injured and he could not even move. Hee. Xiaohao could not believe that golden-eyed playboy slowly opened his eyes. A pair of golden pupils could be seen clearly in his eyes. You are not blind, Xiaohao screamed. Golden-eyed playboy laughed. If I were blind, how could I control my daughter's bloodline in your body? It was because of the connection between their bloodlines that golden-eyed playboy could control the golden bloodline in Xiaohao's body. Through the golden bloodline, he completely suppressed Xiaohao's time domain. What are you doing? What do you want to do to me? Xiaohao felt extremely sinister. The little bug that he looked down on was actually a poisonous snake in disguise. He had bitten him at the most crucial moment. Golden-eyed playboy smiled mysteriously. Of course, I want to become the supreme ruler of time. No, the ruler of time and space. He laughed sinisterly, and the golden light in his eyes reached its peak. Xiaohao suddenly let out a heart-wrenching cry of pain. The time bloodline in his body was wrapped up by the two golden bloodlines and rushed out of Xiaohao's body, merging into golden-eyed playboy's body. Ha 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 ha! I, golden-eyed playboy, have finally completed the unfinished wish of my ancestor. He looked up to the sky and laughed. The Tianyi Empress was the illegitimate child of two rulers. She was not recognized by either side. She was heartlessly abandoned, which was why she fled to a small place like the Outer Realm. As the descendant of a ruler, she also hoped that one day she could inherit the position of a ruler. Unfortunately, time did not wait for her. Even when she died, she did not have the chance to return to an 8-star civilization. Instead, because of love, she died in the Outer Realm. Her descendant, golden-eyed playboy, used his cunning and viciousness, and relied on opportunities to successfully do something that the Tianyi Empress would regret for the rest of her life. He became the ruler of time in one fell swoop. When the space ruler died, he killed all the descendants of the space ruler, took their bloodline, and became the ruler of space. Thus, he became the first ruler of time and space in history. Xiaohao could not accept this reality. He had been working hard since he was born. In the end, when he was so close to success, he worked for someone else. Old thing, give it back to me! Xiaohao roared crazily. He stretched out his hands with difficulty, like a demon that was about to return to hell. He wanted to drag golden-eyed playboy down with him. Chapter 2701. He stomped his foot and crushed Xiaohao's body and soul. In the past, Xiaohao might have been able to use his time bloodline to reverse time. But at this moment, not a single trace of his time bloodline remained. It was impossible to recover. He was really dead. Furthermore, he had died at the feet of a nobody that he didn't care about. To a prodigy of a generation, a ruler of time, this was a great irony. At this moment, the golden-eyed gentleman could not help but laugh out loud. The world is mine. Golden-eyed Langjun almost went crazy. His face was twisted with madness. It was as if a person who had been obsessed for many years had finally gotten what he wanted. However, at that moment, a clicking sound rang out in the ruins without any warning. How dare a small ant compete with me for the glow? Golden-eyed playboy's face stiffened. He turned his head and saw a black-robed man standing behind him. His facial features were ferocious, which was the appearance of a demon. "You are?" the golden-eyed playboy pretended to ask, but he took the opportunity to turn around and use the terrifying time field within his body to attack the black-robed man in front of him. However, the man casually reached out his hand and grabbed golden-eyed Langjun's wrist. Then, endless demonic energy rushed into the golden-eyed gentleman's body. The golden-eyed scholar let out a hoarse cry of pain, just like Xiaohao before he died. His body was quickly disintegrated by the terrifying demonic qi. Before the time domain in Xiao Chen's body could fully merge with his body, the demonic qi rushed out. He was grabbed by the black-robed man. The bloodline of the chief sovereign of time, as well as a portion of the bloodline of the chief sovereign of space. The black-robed man was none other than a stranger. It was the holy demon. He was once one of ancient god Nine Nether's 4 protectors. He was unwilling to be left out, so he pocketed the inheritance left behind by the ancient god of the netherworld and became the master of the heaven law. Furthermore, he had been lying low all this time. He had been waiting for this day. In the end, he did succeed, obtaining everything without shedding a drop of blood. No. Golden-eyed Langjun screamed hysterically. He was indignant. After so many years of hard work, he had finally succeeded with great difficulty, only to be attacked by the mantis stalking the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. He would take away everything that was within his reach. What a pitiful bug! The holy demon laughed sinisterly and did not kill him. Instead, he tapped on her forehead. Suddenly, the golden-eyed playboy stopped struggling and his eyes became dull. He was no longer as vicious and cunning as before. What replaced it was confusion and obedience. He had been transformed into a corpse. An ambitious and ruthless person, who almost ascended to the heavens to become a king, was reduced to the corpse race just like that. After obtaining the Time Sovereign's bloodline, the holy demon laughed heartily. There's only one last step left. The holy demon revealed a sinister smile. Su Yu's heart thumped, as if he had realized something. He took a step forward and arrived above Nanming City. What made his eyes almost pop out of his sockets was that Nanming City had already fallen into the siege of the Devil Race army. Under Elder Mo's terrifying battle prowess, the tunnel masters that remained in the city were dying at a visible rate. The only fortunate thing was that the Empress Palace had not fallen yet. Under the protection of Chu, Duomu, and Feng Ling, Qin Xiener and her daughter were safe and sound. It was just that the surge of the Devil Race had come so suddenly. They were unable to withstand the attacks for a while, and could only retreat in defeat. The Empress Hall was about to fall. Su Yu rushed back in time, and he pressed the air. The 9-colored light turned into 9 colorful dragons and swept forward. In an instant, the invading Devil Race was wiped out. Including several demon elders, they were killed on the spot. This scene scared the Devil Race into retreating frantically. The demon faction master and the little demon master Xie Xiaoye were shocked. The sacred mortal body? It's the sacred mortal body. How could a body that had been extinct appear again? Retreat. The demon master made a prompt decision and immediately chose to retreat. In front of the sacred mortal body, they were just fragile puppets that would be killed in one blow. Only the little demon master Xie Xiaoye looked at the sacred mortal body in confusion. Looking at him, Xie Xiaoye felt as if she was looking at Su Yu. But why was Su Yu here? How could it be the sacred mortal body? Until Su Yu's cold words came. Xie Xiaoye. That voice was Su Yu's. However, before Xiaoya could cry out in surprise, Su Yu said coldly, "You killed my wife and daughter while I was away. You really surprised me." He never thought that Xiaoya would attack Qin Xian'er and Su Kai. Xiaoya was stunned. She didn't know who was in the Empress Hall. She only knew that the person inside was the person that the Holy Demon Lord wanted to catch at all costs. That person was actually Su Yu's wife and daughter. Unfortunately, Su Yu did not wait for her to explain and quickly descended. Seeing that the two of them were safe and sound, he was slightly relieved. If anything happened to them, it would be a mistake that he would never be able to make up for in his life. His eyes narrowed as he glanced at somewhere in the sky. "Holy Demon, get out here!" His voice contained a power that could shatter heaven and earth. The space exploded, and the Holy Demon fell out in a slightly embarrassed manner. His eyes were solemn as he said in a deep voice, "Sacred mortal body, my actions have nothing to do with you. Please step aside." "You wanted to kill his wife and daughter, and you said it had nothing to do with you? Die." Su Yu was too lazy to talk nonsense with the Holy Demon. He turned into a 9-colored streamer of light and pressed down from the sky. The entire sky turned into 9 colors and rumbled down. The Holy Demon looked up and his face changed dramatically to resist. However, under the pressure of the 9-colored light, the Holy Demon spat out demonic blood and could not withstand the attack of the sacred mortal body. His body was struck by a large amount of demonic energy, making him extremely weak. The Holy Fiend was severely injured in just a single exchange. With a spurt of energy, Su Yu turned into a sharp arrow, piercing through the air. Swoosh, the 9-colored arrow pierced through the Holy Demon in an instant. His sturdy body immediately crumbled. But he did not die. Even an elder of the demon race had the ability to evolve several times. Not to mention the Holy Demon ancestor himself. First transformation of the Holy Demon. His aura suddenly became magnificent. That was a transformation that he had sacrificed a great deal to perform. However, he still could not withstand a blow from the sacred mortal body. Su Yu threw a punch at him, shattering his body once again. Second transformation of the Holy Demon. The shattered body of the Holy Demon was strengthened again. Su Yu's eyes narrowed, and the 9-colored light on the surface of his body turned into raging flames that burned his body black. The second transformation of the demon body could no longer be shattered. Third transformation of the Holy Demon. The blackened demon body recovered to its original state, and his aura was even greater. Su Yu's 9-colored light could no longer hurt him. The Holy Demon's face was full of hostility and murderous intent. "You forced me to lose 90% of my life. Are you satisfied now?" he roared, his eyes filled with monstrous resentment. After lying dormant for countless years, he had finally achieved his wish. However, Su Yu had forced him to lose most of his life. So what if he obtained the bloodline of the Time Ruler? There was not much life left to enjoy. "I want you dead." Chapter 2702. Su Yu waved his hand, and the Divine 9-Dragon Cauldron flew out. He placed his palms on the Divine 9-Dragon Cauldron and activated it with the 8 domains. The 8 flying dragons flew out at the same time, pushing the Divine 9-Dragon Cauldron to spin. When it reached a terrifying speed, the entire Divine 9-Dragon Cauldron was scorching hot. At this moment, using the Divine 9-Dragon Cauldron in his holy mortal physique state, the power of the cauldron was incomparable to before. Whoosh! The Divine 9-Dragon Cauldron revolved to the extreme, then was flicked out by Su Yu. Bang! The Divine 9-Dragon Cauldron turned into an afterimage and swept past. Wherever it went, the entire space and even the defensive array formation outside was completely cut open. The power of this strike surpassed the peak. The Holy Demon swept over with a shocking demonic aura, clashing head-on with the Divine 9-Dragon Cauldron. Bang! Boundless loud noises shook the entire southern region of the Broken Dream Realm. All the worlds shattered into dust like illusions. Only Nanming City, which was under their feet, was still intact with the help of the three protectors. The rest of the land had been reduced to ruins, leaving behind only countless dust particles. The smoke and dust dispersed. The holy demon revealed its true form. Its body was covered in hideous wounds. His life force had reached an extremely weak point. Even if Su Yu didn't kill him, he wouldn't be able to live for long. I can't accept this. I've schemed for 10,000 years, but I've lost to the successor of the divine nine-dragon Cauldron. The holy demon roared. Once again, he turned into an afterimage and pounced forward. However, this time, its target was not Su Yu, but someone in the Empress Hall. That person was neither Qin Xiener nor Su Kai. It was Huang Fu-yi. Give me the Eye of Heavenly Death. I can still fight. For some reason, the holy demon had an incomparable desire for the heavenly Tao's Eye of Death. In fact, that desire was even higher than the legacy of Chu San. Su Yu struck him with his palm. A nine-colored light descended and was about to kill the holy demon. However, at that moment the nine-colored light became incomparably weak. The nine-colored light on Su Yu's body receded like a tide. The light from the oil lamp above them dimmed again. The sun of heaven's blood had been completely burned away. The sacred mortal body could not hold on any longer. Su Yu roared furiously in his heart. Why did it have to happen now? Just give him a little more time. The holy demon was no longer able to stop him. He grabbed at the air, and Huang Fui screamed in pain. The death eye of the heavenly Tao that he was born with was forcibly taken away. Holding the heavenly Tao's Azura's eye, the holy demon's eyes were filled with greed. My demon race has the heavenly Tao's Azura's eye, and we can attain a supreme demon emperor's body. Even if we can only live for a moment, it's enough. The demon emperor was a legendary existence. The holy demon had once heard from ancient god Nine Nether that a terrifying existence had been born in the last epoch. He was called the demon emperor. It was the ancestor of all devils. In the last era, they were second only to the nine sacred ancestors. His battle prowess was not necessarily weaker than the sacred ancestor. However, luck was not on his side. When he accompanied the human ancestor to the holy mountain, the nine-tailed emperor used the heavenly Tao's death eye to take his life. His life was forever sealed in the heavenly Tao's eye of death. Countless descendants of demon emperors dreamed of obtaining the heavenly law death's eye. He released the life of the demon emperor within. Once that happened, the demon emperor would borrow the bloodline of his descendants to be reborn and rule the world once more. Originally, the holy demon had planned to obtain the heavenly law death's eye. He wanted to absorb the demon emperor's life bit by bit and replace it. However, after the battle with Su Yu, the sacred mortal body, his foundation had been damaged. He could no longer realize his ambition. Therefore, he simply used his own body to attract the demon emperor to be reborn. Using the demon emperor's hand, he would wipe out all enemies in the world and fulfill his long-cherished wish. Ha 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 ha, sacred mortal body, I will grind your bones to dust. The holy demon was filled with deep resentment. He pressed the heavenly law death's eye into his own eye socket. As long as the heavenly law death's eye fused with his bloodline, he could successfully release the life sealed by the demon emperor. Then, the demon emperor would rule the world. However, at this moment, the holy demon's palm froze in front of his eye socket, unable to move. No, it was not that he could not move. Instead, his body had fallen into a state of frozen time. The holy demon had the cultivation of the heavenly law master. There was only one person in the entire 8-star civilization who could freeze him, the ruler of time. Hee. A hoarse laugh came slowly. A mouse that has been hiding for tens of thousands of years has finally revealed its head in front of food. Behind the holy demon, an old man appeared without warning. He stood with his hands behind his back. He looked exceptionally old, and his whole body was filled with the scent of death. To be precise, there was no scent of a living person on his body. It was as if he was a dead creature. Seeing him, Su Yu's heart skipped a beat. Wasn't this the old man who had helped him refine the time essence in the hair? The old man had also given him a wooden box. He had said that if the wooden box was delivered to its owner one day, the time essence in the hair would be unlocked and Su Yu would be able to absorb it. Many years had passed. Su Yu had almost forgotten about him. Unexpectedly, he had appeared at the last moment. Moreover, his identity was unexpected. The Time Master. A master who should have died. He was not dead. The Time Master's finger gently touched the holy demon's back. The body of the Heavenly Law Master was like a piece of wood, constantly drifting with the wind. Only the Heavenly Law Death's eye and all the bloodlines of the descendants of the Time Master were left. The Time Master tried to grasp the two objects. However, the strange thing was that his hand was transparent and could not grasp the two objects. Su Yu felt relieved when he saw this. The Time Master had cultivated a secret technique. In addition to the original body, there was also the future incarnation and the past incarnation. The one in front of him was the future incarnation. He was in the future time and space, so naturally, he could not grasp everything in the present time and space. Everyone held their breath, especially the demons. They could not believe the scene in front of them. Their holy demon had perished just like that. And it had perished at the hands of an old rival of countless years. From the beginning, the Time Master had been waiting for this moment, waiting to kill the holy demon personally. After killing the holy demon, the old head of the Time Master turned gently and looked at Su Yu. The descendant of the ancient god Jielong, it's been a long time. Su Yu's heart was beating wildly, and his heart was palpitating. He did not think that the Time Master would treat the descendants of the ancient god Jielong kindly. For a moment, the whole world was silent. No one had expected this. In the end, the only remaining future incarnation of the Time Master had appeared. Su Yu said, "It has indeed been a long time. You're the one who hid the most in this scheme." The Time Master smiled hoarsely. "You flatter me." Chapter 2703. Unlike you, who can calculate everything in the future just by calculating, I should be the one admiring you. At this moment, Su Yu couldn't be happy. He would rather not have such a compliment. Then, after so many years of planning, it's time to end it, the Master of Time said indifferently. The bloodline of the Master of Time on the ground suddenly squirmed. It began to condense into a young human figure. That human figure was none other than the Master of Time's young form. I just lack the body of a descendant. Unfortunately, I originally planned to use Xiaohao as a vessel, the Master of Time said hoarsely. From the beginning, the Master of Time had never thought of giving up his position. All he wanted was immortality. Through all the bloodlines, he would be reborn in Xiaohao's body. It was just that the situation had changed slightly. "Let's deal with the ancient god of Nine Nether first," the Master of Time said with a faint smile. His gaze turned to Qin Xianer. Chu, Duomu, and Feng Ling's expressions changed abruptly, and they immediately stood guard beside Qin Xianer. The Master of Time shook his head slightly. "It's useless. I've seen this scene before. Any resistance is futile." His palm slowly grabbed over. Black divine flames immediately gushed out from the bodies of Chu and the others. That was the Nine Nether divine flame, the legacy of the ancient god of Nine Nether sealed in their bodies. At this moment, they were all caught by the Master of Time. Finally, with a hook of his finger, the three divine flames condensed into a purple-black round bead and floated to the ground. However, the Master of Time did not stop. He continued to grasp. The bloodline of the ancient god of Nine Nether in Qin Xianer's body was also slowly pulled out of her body. As long as the last trace of the bloodline of the ancient god of Nine Nether is destroyed in the world, she will never be able to be resurrected again. At the same time, Su Kai'er beside him. Traces of unusual bloodlines were also pulled out of her body. You also have a weak bloodline of the ancient god of 9 Nether, and a trace of the seeds of the 8 great domains. Su Kai showed a pained expression, clutching her throat, feeling that she was almost out of breath. However, the world was so big at this time. Who could save her? Who could save her mother? In front of the Master of Time, everything was so small. However, at this moment, the 9-colored light that had clearly faded away suddenly rose into the sky again, turning the entire world into 9 colors. The time god's aged body trembled as he turned his head in disbelief. The oil lamp above Su Yu's head was reignited, and his whole body emitted a dazzling 9-colored light. The time sovereign couldn't believe it. He came from the future, so why didn't he see this scene? No. It shouldn't be like this. Su Yu's emperor's blood had clearly been used up. At that moment, Su Yu had an unfathomable expression on his face. You must be very surprised as to why I still have the emperor's blood, right? Because, from the very beginning, I didn't have 4 drops. He still had half a drop. That half drop was taken from Prince Xiao Yao's severed arm. He had been hiding it all this time. Even when the Holy Devil was about to transform into a Devil Emperor, he had never used it, because he understood very well. There was also a hidden figure. The Time Dominator. Su Yu himself had cultivated the Time Incarnation. How could he not understand the principle that even if the original body died, the future incarnation would not necessarily die? Therefore, this was half a drop of the Emperor's blood. He had been waiting for the ruler of time to show himself. Divine 9-Dragon Cauldron. Su Yu activated the Divine 9-Dragon Cauldron, and it turned into a fragmentary line as it shot forward with a loud rumble. The ruler of time immediately put down Qin Xiener and the others and displayed the time domain. Freeze. However, the Divine 9-Dragon Cauldron froze for a moment. However, 8 great domains erupted from its body and forcibly broke through the freeze of time. Boom! The Divine 9-Dragon Cauldron slammed into the ruler of time's chest. Poof! As strong as he was, under the attack of the Divine 9-Dragon Cauldron personally activated by the Divine 9-Dragon Cauldron, he finally couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. However, this couldn't hurt the ruler of time's foundation. He stared at Su Yu across the air. Time invasion. The 9-colored light on the surface of Su Yu's body immediately dimmed at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was the river of time that forced him to return to the state of an ordinary person. Humph! Su Yu formed a seal with his hands and shouted in a low voice, "Future incarnation." Another 9-colored figure shook the sky and earth and slowly appeared. For a moment 2 9-colored suns appeared in the sky at the same time. You also learned my time incarnation? The ruler of time's eyelids twitched. Su Yu said lightly, "What do you think?" His original body activated the Divine 9-Dragon Cauldron, while the future incarnation activated the Cauldron of the 8 great domains. 2 mortal saint bodies. 2 peerless divine cauldrons. Together they were suppressed. The ruler of time was shocked. He rolled up his long sleeves and shouted, "River of Time!" With a loud roar, he forcibly summoned the River of Time. Su Yu and his clone, including himself, were all swept into the River of Time. This didn't represent the flow of time in the past. It represented the long river of the future. Only here would his strength be slightly close to the original body. Sure enough, as soon as he entered the River of Time, his strength skyrocketed. His hands grabbed the Divine 9-Dragon Cauldron and the Cauldron of the 8 great domains. The 2 sides were in a stalemate. In the River of Time, an earth-shattering battle broke out. "Descendant of the ancient god of 9 dragons, you can't do anything to me," the ruler of time said hoarsely. "In the future, I am immortal." Su Yu said coldly, "Is that so? I think you will die more thoroughly." In the real world, the future incarnation couldn't be killed. Only in the space-time of the future could his body, which was hidden in the river of the future, be completely destroyed. Swish! In each of his palms, he held a giant door. One was the gate of black feathers, and the other was the gate of white feathers. The door was densely covered with the rich power of the ancient god of 9 underworlds. There were countless fragments of the ancient god realm of 9 underworlds left. Only this piece of the ancient god realm of 9 underworlds was set up by the ancient god of 9 underworlds to seal it tightly. Since ancient times, no one had opened them at the same time. Only today, 9 underworlds appear. Suyu opened the 2 doors at the same time. He combined the 2 doors into one. Suddenly, a mighty and unparalleled aura of 9 underworlds swept out. The 2 doors creaked at the same time, unable to bear the burden. It was as if something was forcing its way out of the door. Finally, the solid and indestructible giant door finally shattered at the same time after a rumble. A boundless and enormous netherworld realm suddenly appeared in front of him. Boom! The 9 underworlds pressed down on the ruler of time. Moreover, in the 9 underworlds, endless emerald flames emerged, burning the ruler of time. Miserable howls resounded throughout the long river of time. This was the real purpose of the ancient god of 9 underworlds leaving this world. He hoped that his descendant would one day hold this world in his hands and fight against the ruler of time. I am the ruler of time, an existence that controls time, and I will never disappear in time. The ruler of time roared. Chapter 2704. The eyes of the 2 Suyus turned serious at the same time. Suppress. Both of them stepped on a cauldron and stepped on it. The Jiuyo world, which had been lifted up, suddenly sank down, suppressing the Time Master again. The jade-green flames burned the Time Ruler bit by bit. His body was burned until it became transparent. That was a sign of his gradual death. Only the river of time could completely destroy his future incarnation. The Time Master could only struggle, unable to resist. It would only take half an hour to completely wipe out the future incarnation of the Time Master. However, the Time Master could not escape. Instead, he smiled hideously. Suyu, to be honest, you really surprised me. In the future he saw, Suyu would be easily killed by him. However, the future had been completely changed because Suyu had hidden half a drop of the Emperor's blood. However, if you think that you've already won, then you're dreaming. Hearing this, the faces of the 2 Suyus changed at the same time. The 2 of them were thinking quickly, thinking about all the dangers they had missed. Xiaohao was dead. The holy demon had been killed. There was no one or thing that could threaten them. Suddenly, the 2 of them thought of a possibility at the same time. There was indeed no one who could threaten Suyu. However, he still had a weakness, a fatal weakness. Qin Xian'er and Su Kai'er. Xian'er, Kai'er, be careful. The 2 Suyus roared at the same time. The roar pierced through time and space and reached the sky above Nanming City. Qin Xian'er and Su Kai'er's faces changed abruptly. Father is warning us that there is danger nearby. Su Kai'er said seriously. Chu Duomu and Feng Ling immediately surrounded Qin Xian'er and Su Kai'er, looking around vigilantly. At this time, Luo Xue also rushed over to protect the 4th direction. Her pretty eyes were full of vigilance. Danger? Where is the danger? Does it refer to the remaining demons? While thinking, Luo Xue's vision suddenly went black. His body was actually not listening to him, and his consciousness was also forcibly falling asleep. Red Dust Master, what are you doing? Luo Xue realized that Red Dust Master was trying to seize control of his body. The Red Dust Path Master's soul wore an enigmatic expression, and he said with a faint smile, I am fulfilling my promise to you, and helping you obtain Su Yu's heart. What do you want to do? Luo Xue had a very bad feeling. The heart that the Red Dust Path Master was referring to might not necessarily be Su Yu's emotional heart. Sleep in peace. When you wake up, you will get what you want. Luo Xue's vision darkened completely, and he lost all control of his body. Luo Xue's eyes shone with a red light. Qin Xian'er's senses were the sharpest. She immediately sensed the appearance of the Red Dust Path Master in Luo Xue's body. His heart thumped. Could the danger that Su Yu was referring to be the Red Dust Path Master? Without any time to think, she grabbed Su Kai-er's shoulder, wanting to protect her in her arms. However, he was still a step too late. The Red Dust Taoist gently hooked his finger and pulled Su Kai-er into his arms. Then, he slowly grabbed Su Kai-er's neck. Su Kai-er also revealed a pained expression as she exerted force on her fingers. She struggled with both of her hands, trying to move Red Dust Taoist Master's hands away. However, the latter's hands were like iron pincers, rendering her immobile. Qin Xian'er's face was as cold as ice. Red Dust Taoist Master, let go of my daughter. She had never thought that the Red Dust Taoist Master, who had been residing in Luo Xue's body all year round, would attack her and her daughter. If she hadn't reacted in time, she might have become a hostage in his hands. The Red Dust Taoist Master's lips curled into a thought-provoking smile. What a deep love between mother and daughter. I wonder if the love between father and daughter is also deep? She was a little regretful. I remember that the relationship between father and daughter was not good. In fact, she wanted to capture Qin Xian'er, not Su Kai-er. Su Yu had a deep love for Qin Xian'er. But Su Kai-er, to be precise, Su Kai-er had never truly accepted Su Yu as her father. The relationship between the two was very delicate. However, since it was only Su Kai-er who had been captured, he would give it a try. Su Yu, look at your daughter. The Red Dust Taoist Master looked at the River of Time. In the River of Time. Hearing that, the Time Master knew that the mission had been accomplished. He shook his sleeves, and the River of Time dissipated. He and the two Su Yu returned to the current time and space at the same time. Looking at the scene before them, the two Su Yu's eyes were filled with murderous intent. Red Dust Taoist Master. The two of them spoke at the same time. They were both surprised and shocked. The Red Dust Taoist Master tightened his grip on Su Kai-er's neck and said with a faint smile, "Being threatened by two sacred bodies of mortal fetus is really scary." Su Yu asked in a deep voice, "Why are you doing this?" If the Red Dust Tao Lord wanted to harm Qin Xian'er and Su Kai-er, he would have done so many years ago. Why did he wait until today? He glanced at the suppressed time sovereign out of the corner of his eye. The Red Dust Taoist Master twirled a strand of black hair in front of his chest with his other hand. "Of course it's because the Time Dominator can give me something that you can't." As expected, it was the ruler of time. Back then, Luo Xue had been captured by the Time Master into the wilderness of time. It was during that time that they completed a certain agreement. The agreement was that the Red Dust Taoist Master would act at the critical moment and capture Qin Xian'er and Su Kai. In return, the Time God would help the Red Dust Tao Lord survive the apocalypse. The Time Ruler raised the Netherworld realm, threw it away, and calmly escaped. His entire body was filled with weakness. However, the good news was that Su Yu didn't want to hurt her. "Let go of my daughter," Su Yu said in a stern voice. At this moment, he wanted to tear the Red Dust Tao Lord into pieces. The Time Ruler laughed, and her laughter was full of ferocity. "Do you remember that I once gave you a wooden box? Why don't you take it out and have a look?" Su Yu's eyes slowly narrowed and he took it out. Above the wooden box there was a flash of light. What does it mean? He remembered that the Time Ruler had said this when she gave it to him. The wooden box was to be given to someone else. However, the Time Ruler didn't say who it was for. He only said that the wooden box would react when it met someone who needed it. Now, the wooden box was glowing. Was it for the Time Ruler? Of course, the wooden box met someone who needed it. The Time Ruler laughed hoarsely. She looked at the Red Dust Tao Lord behind her. The wooden box was for her? And then, Su Yu's eyes narrowed. He had checked the wooden box and confirmed that it was very ordinary. There was nothing special about it. The Time Ruler put her hands behind her back and said mysteriously, There is still one thing missing in the wooden box. I hope you can put that thing inside and give it to the Red Dust Dowlord. The Time Ruler couldn't touch the real world. She could only ask the Red Dust Dowlord to hold it for her. What is it? Suyu asked slowly after a long silence. He had already guessed what was going to be put inside. Chapter 2705. It was the Red Dust Path Master who answered. Heart? Suyu's heart skipped a beat. He could lose his heart. Because he could use the life domain to reconstruct it. He could even use it to resurrect himself. The Red Dust Path Master took out a dagger flowing with rainbow colors and introduced it playfully. This is a dagger forged from the corpse of the stone-birth Son of Heaven. The person killed with it will die forever. Death, others might not understand, but Suyu understood it better than anyone else. Death was not the end of life, because the dead could be resurrected. They could be resurrected as living creatures with the life domain. They could be resurrected as corpses by special means. However, returning to the void meant that one would disappear for eternity. Once death occurred, they could not be resurrected as living creatures or corpses. In a sense, death was the real death. Suyu's resurrection was no longer useful. Clang! The Red Dust Path Master threw the dagger over and said, "Dig out your heart and put it in a wooden box." Once the dagger was used to dig out the heart, Suyu would die for real. There was no turning back. In fact, the Red Dust Path Master was not sure whether he would succeed. He did not know whether Suyu valued his daughter more than Qin Xian'er. Su Kai'er stared at Suyu from afar. She felt a chill in her heart. She felt that her life should come to an end. The father-daughter relationship between her and Suyu was shallow and had no foundation. The lack of 10 years of childhood meant that there was an unbridgeable gap between them. It was difficult for her to see Suyu as her biological father. It was also difficult for Suyu to see her as his daughter. As she thought about this, she was shocked to see Suyu pick up the dagger on the ground. There was no hesitation. It was as if everything was supposed to happen. Qin Xian'er grabbed Suyu's arm, her face full of tears. No. She had been with Suyu for many years, and she had already understood his heart from his eyes. He wanted to save Su Kai'er. Suyu held the dagger in his hand and looked up at the sky, letting out a long sigh. He was like a soldier who had been fighting on the battlefield for many years, standing on the desolate earth, letting out a relieved sigh. "You won," he said slowly. At this moment, Suyu, who had never admitted defeat. For the first time in his life, he admitted defeat. This was because they held something more precious than Suyu's life in their hands. Su Kai'er. He and Qin Xian'er's only child. This was a child that he had to give everything to protect and care for. Life was indeed precious. How could they compare to a child? "I can give you my heart, but promise me that you will let her go. Let Qin Xian'er go. Let everyone here go." The Red Dust Taoist's eyes lit up. "Of course, it doesn't matter whether they die or not." Suyu's gaze became sharp and he said, "You've been by my side for many years, so you should understand what I mean. Don't play games with words." She didn't answer him directly. This was not even a vow. The Red Dust Daylord's eyes narrowed. "All right, I swear that I won't take their lives." Suyu shook his head and slowly put down the dagger. The 9-colored light around his body shone brightly again. "You didn't plan to let them off," Suyu said coldly. She could choose not to take it, but couldn't she order others to take it? The Red Dust Sect Master had been playing with words all along, trying to deceive Suyu. It was obvious that she had no intention of letting them off. If that was the case, what was the value of Suyu's death? If he died, not only would Su Kai'er die, but Qin Xian'er would also die. The Red Dust Sect Master was flustered, and he tightened his grip on Su Kai'er's neck. She was secretly annoyed. It was too tiring to play mind games with a smart person like Suyu. All of her plans were within his expectations. The Time Master said in a low voice, "All right, I swear that as long as you are willing to die, I will never hurt, imprison, or threaten them." From now on, I will stay away from them wherever they are. This vow is effective on myself, as well as all those who are directly or indirectly related to me. The vow turned into a wave, which reached the depths of the 9 heavens and reached a mysterious existence. Only then did Su Yu hold the dagger tightly again. With this vow, Qin Xianer and the others were temporarily safe. Do it. Use your death to give your daughter a new life, the Time Master said. Su Yu lifted the dagger again and pressed it against his chest. If he stabbed it, he would end up in eternal ruin. 200 years had passed. His former dream, his former lover, all of them would become bubbles, extinguished candles in the darkness. It would become a sigh that couldn't be saved. Father, let me die. Su Kai-er was crying. I also want to live, but I want to see my mother live with a smile. If you die, there will be no smile on my face anymore. Su Kai-er looked at Su Yu and said with relief, I am not a good daughter. Father, you don't have to do so much for me. I won't hate you, I won't blame you, and I won't blame you. Su Yu didn't speak, but just looked at Su Kai-er deeply. With a gentle press of his palm, the dagger was inserted into his heart. His chest immediately turned gray and turned into stone. Father! Stop! Stop it! Su Kai-er's pupils shrank as she screamed. Su Yu didn't stop, and the dagger was inserted into his chest bit by bit. There was an apologetic look on his face, as well as the maturity of a father. Silly child, as a parent, how can you let your child die for you? The only unconditional love in the world was familial love. Parents could sacrifice everything for their children, including themselves. They didn't ask for anything in return. This was the greatness of familial love. It transcended the chain of interests, the shackles of value, and the rules of heaven and earth. I am not a qualified father, but I have always wanted to be a good father. The dagger was inserted a little deeper. Su Yu's entire chest had turned into stone. It was because of the dagger. The dagger was taken from the corpse of the stone-birth heaven's son. Once it killed someone, it would turn them into stone. Kai-er, I'm sorry that I couldn't stay with you. From now on, live a good life with your mother. Don't seek revenge. Just be safe. Puff. The dagger turned and cut out Su Yu's heart. Su Yu held the blood-red heart in his hand and put it into the wooden box. The Red Dust Master waved his hand and brought the wooden box over. Her face was full of confidence, and she laughed. I finally got it. When she had possessed Luoxue, she had sworn an oath with Luoxue that she would help her win Su Yu's heart. Now the oath had been fulfilled. She was no longer bound by the oath. She could leave Luoxue and live freely in the world. As she laughed, she looked at Su Yu. At the moment, Su Yu was not dead. The oil lamp above his head was maintaining the last thread of his life. But it was only a thread. Haha, go and see your father for the last time. The Red Dust Master let go of Su Kai-er. Su Kai-er's eyes were dazed as she stumbled over. Looking at Su Yu, who had turned into a stone man, with only his eyes still showing signs of life, Su Kai-er couldn't accept the reality before her. Chapter 2706. Su Yu had clearly grasped victory and grasped the entire situation. But because of her, he had given up victory and even his own life. The funny thing was, when she was kidnapped, she had guessed that Su Yu would not sacrifice himself for her. Slap, Su Kai-er slapped herself hard. She finally understood what it meant to measure a gentleman's heart with one's own yardstick. She had thought that Su Yu would see her the way she saw him. In the end, that was not the case. I don't want to live anymore. Su Kai-er raised her palm and slapped the top of her head. But all she got was a slap. Qin Xianer's hollow eyes were filled with incomparable disappointment. He sacrificed himself to save someone like you? How much longer are you going to disappoint him? Su Yu had sacrificed everything to make Su Kai-er commit suicide out of shame? No, he had only wanted her to grow up and live in peace. He did not even want revenge. As if she had been slapped awake, Su Kai-er stood in front of Su Yu's stone statue, crying. Scold me, scold me. Su Kai cried bitterly. She thought back to all her rebellious acts. She thought back to all her disregard. She thought back to all her alienation. Su Kai wanted to use that dagger to cut open her chest. Take a good look. Had her heart and lungs been eaten by dogs long ago? Before they had met, Su Yu had helped her, selflessly saving her and her mother. She should have understood Su Yu's heart, his character, and the difficulties he had gone missing for 10 years. But she had never let go of the 10 years' absence. She had constantly used this to torment Su Yu, to make him feel guilty, to make him feel sorry for himself. Thinking about it now, she could not help but cry her heart out. What did she think she was? Even if she had treated him as her savior, she should not have treated him like this. Moreover, he was her father. At this moment, she hated herself. Childish and self-righteous. In the end, she had caused her father's death. The oil lamp above Su Yu's head emitted green smoke. It was a sign that it was about to be extinguished. Su Yu's eyes were filled with the last bit of emotion, using his last bit of life to comfort her. Kai, don't cry. I don't blame you, these were Su Yu's last words to his daughter. However, Su Kai cried even more bitterly. She would rather Su Yu hate her, blame her, or even scold her before he died. That would make her feel better. But he didn't. Instead, he used his last bit of life to comfort her, telling her not to be sad. Father! Su Kai threw herself at him and hugged him for the first time. She felt for the first time that Su Yu was very distant from her. However, it was a pity that Su Yu's life had already withered away. The oil lamp above his head slowly dissipated and collapsed. The death of a man is like the extinguishing of a lamp. Just like that, a rising generation of the human race completely fell. He did not die in the endless twists and turns. He did not die in the hands of his mortal enemy, the holy body. Instead, he died in the arms of his daughter. Suddenly, it began to rain. It was red rain. It was a blood rain. The ground suddenly trembled incessantly. That was the trembling of crying. It was the weeping of the earth. The heavens wept blood and the earth mourned. The fall of the sacred body of the mortal body caused the heavens and the earth to weep, the common people to mourn, and the whole world to be shaken. He was the last person with a sacred mortal body in the world. He represented the only hope to fight against the holy mountain and destiny. However, in the end, he fell in a pool of blood before the end of the era. Ah! No, no! Su Kai wailed, tears of regret flowing down her cheeks. I haven't had a good talk with you yet. Don't go. However, only the cold stone statue responded to her. There was no Su Yu in the world. There was no sacred mortal body. There was no descendant of the ancient god Jiulong. The Time Dominator looked up at the sky, her face covered in blood rain, and said indifferently, "Let's go." The Red Dust Path Master nodded and came to the ground, trying to pick up the bloodline of the Time Dominator, the death eye of the heavenly law, and the legacy of the ancient god Jiryo. However, a figure flew over. She snatched the death eye of the heavenly law first. The Red Dust Path Master looked and found that it was a descendant of the holy demon, the young master of the demon faction, Xiaoya. Her face was covered in blood rain. But most of it was her own tears. She held the death eye of the heavenly law in her palm and stared at the Red Dust Path Master with grief and hatred. The look in her eyes made the Red Dust Path Master's hair stand on end. She forced herself to be calm and shouted fiercely, "Put it down!" Xiaoya's eyes were still filled with endless hatred. "I want you to die a horrible death!" She raised her head and put the death eye of the heavenly law in her mouth. The Time Dominator, who had just turned around, suddenly turned back, and her expression changed drastically. Time, freeze! However, she was still a step too late. A white mist seeped out of Xiaoya's body. The time freeze that the Time Dominator had personally performed could not affect her. Oh no! The Time Dominator rushed over and pointed a finger at Xiaoya's brow. Time deprivation. Her tone was full of anxiety and intense killing intent. However, before her finger got close, a white mist swept out from Xiaoya's brow. The Time Dominator's finger had just touched it when it was immediately shattered. Hiss! The Time Dominator was in pain, but she still endured the pain and killed Xiaoya forcefully. Destroy! Xiaoya's body was immediately robbed of all time and turned into a pile of ashes. However, in the ashes, a jade-green bead was constantly emitting dazzling jade-green light. A thick white mist surrounded the bead at high speed. A terrifying aura that caused the heavens and the earth to tremble and the 8-star civilizations to tremble slowly flowed out. For a moment, the other 7 dominators all looked toward the Time Dominator with shock. An existence that was above them had appeared. The Red Dust Dao Master's heart shook, and he hid behind the Time Dominator. Ruler, what happened? The Time Dominator's expression was extremely ugly, and she even felt despair. That girl has the bloodline of a demon emperor. The Red Dust Dao Master's pupils contracted. Her heart seemed to be grabbed by someone, making it hard for her to breathe. Her mind was filled with Xiaoya's hateful, chilling eyes. Quick, stop her, the Red Dust Dao Master urged. Her heart beat wildly, and it became more and more intense. The Time Dominator shook her head solemnly. It's too late. Run. Even the 8 dominators together can't suppress the Demon Emperor. Besides, my true body has already been destroyed, and only my future incarnation is left. The Demon Emperor was in existence below the 9 sacred ancestors of the last era. Apart from the 9 sacred ancestors, no one in the world could resist them. After saying this, the Time Dominator grabbed the Red Dust Dao Master and broke through everything to escape. They didn't even care about the bloodline of the Time Dominator and the inheritance of ancient God 9 Darkness. Chapter 2707. Finally, the white mist spun rapidly. The heavenly Dao's eye of death suddenly cracked. A crack actually appeared on it. Hee hee. A burst of demonic laughter swept out from the heavenly Dao's eye of death. This demon emperor is finally out. In an instant, the entire 8-star civilization trembled violently. The 7 rulers' eyelids twitched, and their faces were filled with shock. It was as if doomsday had arrived. The sky, the entire 8-star civilization's sky darkened. A dark mass enveloped all living beings. The sun and moon disappeared. The stars were gone. All that was left was the terrifying darkness of eternal oblivion. Buzz, suddenly, in the dark sky, 2 blood moons appeared, shining on the 8-star civilization. The blood moons swept in all directions, enveloping the entire 8-star civilization like a blood purgatory. However, it was not the moon. It was the eyes. It was the Demon Emperor's eyes. His majestic body crossed the universe, stepping on the 8-star civilization. A huge projection covered the sky, covering the sun, moon, and stars, plunging the world into darkness. The sacred ancestors' land is occupied by insects. How sad! The Demon Emperor sighed. The darkness shook and the sun and moon collapsed. The blood vessels of the 7 martial sovereigns exploded, and their respective domains were unleashed uncontrollably. For a moment, the demonic aura enveloped the world. All living beings fell into prostration. Sigh. After the era, the sacred ancestor will be dead. Who can fight me? As soon as he said that, the darkness disappeared. The Demon Emperor's majestic figure disappeared. However, the heavy pressure still existed. Time Domain. Southern Dream Broken Realm. In the sky above Nanming City, a 10,000 feet tall throne of skeletons stood in the sky. On the throne, the skeletons opened their mouths and made disturbing noises. There were so many of them that they could not be counted. On the throne, a 10,000 feet tall giant sat. He tilted his body and looked down at the world with an unrestrained attitude. Under the gaze of a pair of blood-colored eyes, the world trembled. Being stared at, the demons all knelt down and shouted excitedly, "Welcome back, Demon Emperor! The demon emperor's eyes were indifferent. He leaned on the throne, supported his chin with his left hand, and gently curled the fingers of his right hand. Xie Xiaoya's soul body appeared in front of him. She knelt on the ground on one knee. Her body was slowly losing soul fluorescence, making her more and more transparent. "Do you have any last wishes?" the demon emperor asked indifferently. It was Xie Xiaoya who had used her bloodline to open the Eye of Death and release the demon emperor. Now, Xie Xiaoya's soul had been destroyed. Xie Xiaoya lowered her head. There was only hatred left in her eyes. "Kill that woman, kill that woman! Kill her!" This was a hatred that she could not forget even in death. They were all red dust downlords. She had caused Su Yu's death. He must die. That woman must die. Anything else? The demon emperor looked at her indifferently. Xie Xiaoya looked at Su Yu's stone statue, and the madness in her eyes faded a lot. She said, "Demon Emperor, please save him." The two last wishes were finished. Only then did the demon emperor slowly say, "I will help you fulfill your first wish." He raised his eyes and scanned the four seas. In an instant, the 8 major regions of the 8-star civilizations trembled continuously. The Time Ruler, who had already escaped from the Time Domain, suddenly vomited a mouthful of blood. The red dust Dowlord in his hand let out a shriek. This was because a pitch-black demonic palm had appeared behind her. It transcended space, transcended time, and grabbed hold of him. "Save me! Ruler, save me!" She screamed in horror, and a pair of hands grabbed the arms of the Time Ruler. Turning her head, the Time Sovereign sucked in a breath of cold air. "Let go!" The Time Ruler trembled violently, but she could not shake off the extremely terrified red dust Dowlord. The demonic claw grabbed the red dust Dowlord and dragged her into the dark world, dragging the Time Ruler along with it. There was a flash of ruthlessness in her eyes. The palm slashed fiercely, cutting off both of the red dust Dowlord's arms. "Get lost! Don't drag me down! Ah! Don't abandon me! Ruler, you promised me to." The demonic claw dragged the red dust Dowlord away mercilessly. The scene in front of her changed. She found that she had appeared in front of a 10,000 feet tall skeleton throne. There, a demon lord who looked down on the world with unparalleled demonic might was staring at him indifferently. Being stared at by those eyes, the red dust Dowlord found that she could not even move. "How do you want her to die?" the demon emperor asked. Xie Xiaoya looked up, her eyes full of madness, and shouted, "I want her to die a horrible death." The demon emperor nodded slowly. With a look, the red dust Dowlord was thrown to the throne. Suddenly, the red dust Dowlord was eaten by countless skeletons. Her skin, flesh, and bones were all eaten by the skeletons, bit by bit, inch by inch. She let out a blood-curdling screech. It was as if she was suffering the most extreme torture in the world. After a long, long time, she was eaten alive, without leaving a trace. The demon emperor said calmly, "The second last wish." He looked at the stone statue of Su Yu and was silent for a moment. "He has already died. He can't be saved." The demon emperor shook his head. "What?" Xie Xiaoya's eyes lost focus. She knelt on the ground and begged, "Demon Emperor, please try your best to save him. Please, please, please save him." Tears rolled down from her soul. It sped up her death. The demon emperor was silent for a long time and said, "I can't help you with the second last wish. I can help you rebuild your body and give you the power of the Master of the Heaven Law." The Master of the Heaven Law. That was the highest realm in the world. It was a realm that countless powerful people dreamed of but could not achieve. Moreover, Xie Xiaoya did not have to die. Xie Xiaoya shook her head in tears. "No. I don't want it. As long as the demon emperor can save him, I will die willingly." The demon emperor looked at Xie Xiaoya and said slowly, "Is it worth it for a mortal? Was it so difficult to choose between the realm of the Master of the Heaven Law and the life of others? Why was this descendant so irrational?" Xie Xiaoya said with tears in her eyes. In life, the sacrifice of some people is not measured by whether it is worth it or not, but by whether they are willing or not. My answer to Su Yu is yes. She kowtowed deeply. Please, Demon Emperor, I am willing to sacrifice my whole life just for him to open his eyes once. The Demon Emperor was silent for a long time. The world fell silent, as if waiting for the Demon Emperor's answer. Finally, he slowly stood up from the throne and sighed. The heavenly law is heartless, but there is love in the world. Fine, I will fulfill your wish. His figure continued to shrink. Finally, he turned into the size of a normal person and came in front of Su Yu's stone statue. Looking at his missing chest, he said, "He was killed by a fragment of the stone-birth Son of Heaven. He should not have been saved, but he was very lucky." The Demon Emperor made a grabbing motion in the air and forcefully took out an item from Su Yu's space storage device. Chapter 2708. This item can be the heart, the Demon Emperor said indifferently. He slowly opened his palm, revealing a silver-white stone. The stone was the fruit of the heavenly orchid silver bamboo, which Su Yu had cultivated for many years. After the outer shell of the fruit cracked, the stones fell out. This stone was extremely heavy. Once it was released, it could crush any seven-star civilization. Even now, Su Yu couldn't easily pick it up. However, the Demon Emperor had easily grasped it in his palm. Heavenly Prince Mirrorflower was shattered by the human ancestor. His body was split into 4. The Demon Emperor recalled. There was a deep sense of melancholy in his eyes. If you had obtained any part of the body, it would have been useless. But you just had to obtain the heart. The Demon Emperor revealed the true origin of the stone in the heavenly orchid silver bamboo's fruit. Heavenly Prince Mirrorflower's heart. Back then, the Mirrorflower Heavenly Empress and the Nine-Tailed Heavenly Empress were both shattered by the Rinzu. Before the Nine-Tailed Heavenly Prince died, he used the Heavenly Tao's Death Eye to steal a portion of Heavenly Prince Mirrorflower's heart. He hid it in the supreme growing soil in his eyes. However, Su Yu had accidentally planted the heavenly orchid silver bamboo in the nursery. It absorbed the heart and condensed it into a single fruit. Su Yu had held this object for many years, but he still didn't understand its function. The Demon Emperor looked at Su Yu with a playful look in his eyes. The body of the sacred mortal body, the heart of the stone-birth Son of Heaven. If the two were to fuse, what kind of existence would be born? The Demon Emperor said slowly. Mortal sacred body, stone-birth Son of Heaven. They were all supreme existences in the world. One represented the common people. One represented the sacred mountain. The two of them were opposing existences. But now, he was going to fuse the most important heart of an emperor into the chest of a sacred mortal body. It was really hard to say what would happen with this unprecedented feat. Even the Demon Emperor had a trace of curiosity and anticipation. As he spoke, the Demon Emperor struck the Emperor's heart into Su Yu's chest. However, as soon as he placed it in, the stone slid out on its own. As expected, the two are unable to naturally fuse together. The Demon Emperor lightly said. But he didn't stop there. Instead, he forcibly placed the Emperor's heart into Su Yu's chest with his powerful demonic might. Seeing that the Son of Heaven's heart was unwilling to fuse with it, the Demon Emperor used his own strength to set up a seal. He forcefully sealed the Emperor's heart in Su Yu's chest. No matter how much the stone jumped and resisted, it was unable to break free. After the stone was placed in place, the hideous wound on his chest actually began to heal, wrapping around his heart. Subsequently, dong dong, the soft sound of a heartbeat resounded in the silent air. The Emperor's heart had successfully fused with Su Yu's body. However, Su Yu's petrified body did not change. He was like a stone man with an empty heart. Demon Emperor, why hasn't he recovered yet? Xie Xiaoya asked. The Devil Emperor said, I did fix his heart, but his body is already dead. There's no way to fix it. What? Xie Xiaoya's relaxed heart tightened again. Since that was the case, what was the point of the demon emperor placing a heart for him? Unless someone is willing to sacrifice themselves. The demon emperor looked at Xie Xiaoya, then at Su Ke'er and Qin Xianer. Xie Xiaoya bowed. Please guide me, demon emperor. The demon emperor said indifferently, the injuries of the stone-birth son of heaven need to be treated with the blood of a sacred mortal body. Holy mortal body? Despair filled Xie Xiaoya's eyes. The sacred mortal body in the world had long been extinct. Perhaps Su Yu was the last sacred mortal body. Where could he find a second sacred mortal body? The sacred mortal body. He still has one. The demon emperor grabbed the air and forcibly took out the corpse of the waning moon empress's holy mortal body from Su Yu's space storage device. Xie Xiaoya was immediately overjoyed. Su Yu could be saved now. However, the demon emperor's next words struck deep into her heart. However, the blood of the sacred mortal body is the most dangerous bloodline in the world. The demon emperor's face was grave. To smear the blood of the sacred mortal body on every corner of the stone statue, one must have the resolve to die. Even the demon emperor was unwilling to touch the blood of the sacred mortal body, because it would indiscriminately harm anyone who touched it. Even the demon emperor was no exception. I'll use my life to save my father. Su Ke'er was like a person who saw a chance for redemption. As long as Su Yu could come back to life, she didn't care what happened to her. The demon emperor ignored her and used his powerful demonic power to cut open the wrist of the sacred mortal body. Suddenly, a stream of 9-colored blood flowed out from the wrist. He moved slightly away and said indifferently, "Who's next?" "Me." Xie Xiaoya was the closest and took the lead to catch the blood of the sacred mortal body. When Su Ke'er was about to come closer, Xie Xiaoya pushed her away. She looked at Su Ke'er, her eyes filled with relief. The life that your father sacrificed everything to save shouldn't be destroyed so easily. But... Su Ke'er bit her lip. Xie Xiaoya stared deeply at Su Yu and murmured, "There are no buts. I did everything willingly." Her finger was stained with a trace of the blood of the sacred mortal body. Her finger was immediately set ablaze. The intense burning pain caused Xie Xiaoya's soul to fade faster. But her face was full of a happy smile. "It was my greatest luck to have met your father in this life." Xie Xiaoya smiled and smeared the blood of the sacred mortal body on Su Yu's face. After smearing it, the petrified area immediately returned to its normal color. She stained it again and continued to smear it. The destructive power of the blood of the sacred mortal body was causing her soul to dissipate continuously. But the smile on her face became more and more serene. "I thought I would live my life in a muddle until I met your father." Xie Xiaoya seemed to be recalling the most beautiful memories of her life. "At first we were friends. Then we became enemies. In the end we became friends again." More than half of Xie Xiaoya's soul had dissipated. The demon emperor saw this but did not stop her. From the moment Xie Xiaoya sacrificed her body to release him, she was already dead. That was exactly what she had said. She was willing to sacrifice herself for Su Yu. Su Ke'er's eyes were misty with tears. "Stop, this is what I should do." Xie Xiaoya was immersed in deep memories, unable to extricate herself. She said to herself, "Do you know why? Because of your father's character, we became friends again." Su Ke'er listened quietly. It was the first time she had heard someone else talk about her father. It was the first time she imagined how extraordinary he was. Xie Xiaoya turned to look at Su Ke'er and said softly, "You are really enviable to have such a father." Her gaze passed through Su Ke'er and landed on Qin Xianer, who had a complicated look on her face. "But the one I am most jealous of has always been you." From the first time she saw Qin Xianer, she knew she was Su Yu's wife, who had lost her memory. From that moment on, she had been jealous. Jealous that Qin Xianer had Su Yu. But Su Yu's heart only held Qin Xianer. There was no room for anyone else. At this moment, Xie Xiaoye had already smeared Su Yu's entire body. Only the last wisp was left. She swept up a wisp of the blood of the sacred mortal body. Her soul was already so transparent that it was almost invisible. The glow of her soul completely dissipated. She was about to return to dust. Chapter 2709. Why did you meet Su Yu first? Why? Xie Xiaoye's face was filled with loneliness and regret. If she had met Su Yu first, would there have been a different outcome? Thank you, I'm sorry. Qin Xian'er lowered her head in shame. She felt extremely complicated. She should have been the one to save her husband. However, the sacrifice was a woman who loved her husband. She watched from the side. At this moment, Qin Xian'er felt inferior and had a complicated feeling of being outshone. In the end, she was still a selfish woman. So selfish that she only wanted to use Su Yu alone, so selfish that she only wanted to live and be with Su Yu. Xie Xiaoye smiled softly, and her smile became transparent. No need to thank me, no need to apologize. Take this as my blessing to you. After saying that, her soul completely collapsed. Before disappearing, Xie Xiaoye said one last time, "Please don't tell him that I died for him. He will feel guilty for the rest of his life. Goodbye, Su Yu." Finally, she gazed deeply at Su Yu, who had returned to his human form, and a warm smile appeared on her face. Then, she completely disappeared. Xie Xiaoye was no longer in this world. The sometimes calm and sometimes mischievous Xie Xiaoye was no longer there. All that was left was the echo of that one sentence, "I am willing." Qin Xian'er covered her face and burst into tears. Su Kai also knelt on the ground, her heart filled with endless remorse and guilt. Everything was her fault. Everything was her fault. The demon emperor shook his head and said, "What is love in the world? Only life and death are unpredictable." He strode away and said without looking back, "He will wake up in 10 years. Saint body, emperor's heart." It was a unique fusion that could not be completed so easily. Su Yu needed to sleep for 10 years before he could be reborn. At this moment, Su Yu, the consciousness that had originally dissipated, had actually gathered again. He felt that everything in front of him was pitch black. "Am I dead or alive?" Su Yu murmured. This half-conscious, half-unconscious state made it difficult for him to distinguish anything. He did not know how long he had been in this state. In Su Yu's pitch-black world, a blood-red glimmer suddenly appeared. That glimmer gave the infinite darkness the only hope. Then, there was a second glimmer, a third. The dark world was no longer monotonous, and the coldness around him slowly faded. There was a hint of warmth. It was like the feeling of being hugged by his mother when he was young. There was a trace of vitality in his consciousness. It was as if a dead ancient tree had a trace of vitality. He stared at the red light, his consciousness filled with confusion. "Warm and familiar," Su Yu murmured. He seemed to have seen that red light before. But at this moment, his consciousness was in a state of chaos, as if all his past memories had been severed. More and more blood-red light appeared, expelling all the darkness. Only then did Su Yu realize that he was lying in a coffin. He abruptly stood up and looked around in alarm. He realized that there was an empty coffin beside him. There used to be a person lying inside. Just like him, he suddenly woke up and left the coffin. He stood up and looked at the blood-red land in confusion. "Where am I? Are you dead or alive?" Su Yu faintly felt that he was already dead. However, for some unknown reason, he appeared in this strange world. Suddenly, Su Yu discovered that there was an ancient gate standing on the ground at the end of the boundless world. After thinking for a moment, Su Yu stepped out of the coffin and landed on the ground. As soon as his feet touched the ground, the earth began to tremble. It seemed to be afraid. With every step he took, the earth trembled fiercely. And he left a series of deep footprints. However, not long after, those footprints turned into lines of heavenly script characters. Su Yu was at a loss as he came to the door. This door was exceptionally old and very ordinary. It was like a wooden door in an abandoned house that had been eroded by the wind and rain. It could be smashed to pieces with just a strong kick. However, Suyu only had the strength to walk, so he could not kick it open. He held the door handle and tried to push the door open. In the end, he did not succeed. And there was nothing around that he could borrow. Suyu's weak consciousness told himself, if he wanted to leave this world, he might have to open this strange door. But he had no strength left. At this moment, Suyu suddenly noticed that a rabbit was rushing over from a distance. It panicked and did not know where it was going. Carelessly, he bumped into the door. Bang! It was knocked unconscious on the spot. Suyu was stunned and picked up the rabbit. At this moment, he heard the sound of growling. Hunger? Ever since he entered the martial arts world, he had not felt hunger for 200 years. The long-lost feeling made Suyu feel very fresh. The rabbit in front of him also stimulated his appetite. However, this rabbit must have encountered danger for it to run over so randomly. He could not stay here for long. He carried the rabbit and walked into the distance. There was a small protruding hill there, and it was the only place in sight that could hide them. He came to the foot of the hill. Suyu looked at the rabbit in his hand. He did not even have the strength to skin it. Even if he did, there was no dagger or other tools. There were no materials to start a fire. But his stomach was getting hungrier. Looking at the rabbit in front of him, he could not bear the hunger in his heart. Like a barbarian, he bit down. He thought it would be difficult to bite through the rabbit's skin, or that it would be full of fishy smell. But strangely, he bit off a piece of meat very easily. There was no blood in the meat. It was all glistening, fragrant pieces of meat. After one bite, Suyu felt his body become warmer and faintly felt his body become more powerful. He ate a few mouthfuls in a row and completely destroyed the rabbit. Suddenly, Suyu's whole body heated up and his body was full of strength. He threw a punch, which was equivalent to a mortal's martial arts practitioner. He was about to go back and open the door. Suddenly, 3 figures ran over from afar. They were carrying bows and arrows on their backs, standing not far from the door and looking around. Where is the rabbit? All 3 of them had blurry faces. Even their voices were very vague. The person in the middle had a blurry body. On the left was a woman, and on the right was a man. It was a strange creature with a mix of men and women. Strange, the rabbit was chased by us, and it did come here. Why can't we see its shadow? Uncle, look at the ground, there are footprints. On the right, a person covered in thorns suddenly noticed something strange. The person in the middle looked in the direction of the footprints and immediately said, "Let's go and see who dares to steal our prey." The 3 of them followed the footprints and ran over. Suyu was observing in secret. Seeing this, his heart skipped a beat. He immediately ran up the mountain. But this mountain was full of bare, strange trees. There was no hiding place. Therefore, the 3 hunters at the foot of the mountain immediately discovered Suyu. "It's really a person," the woman said in surprise. Chapter 27:10. The man in the middle looked excited. "It's a perfect celestial being, a celestial being. Chase him." He took the bow and arrow from his back and shot it at Suyu. Suyu had just eaten a rabbit, so his body was full of energy. He dodged the arrow and successfully dodged it. The arrow missed its target and landed on the ground. Puff, unexpectedly, the arrow had sunk halfway into the ground. A sparkling liquid emerged from the depths of the ground. Suyu was startled. Wasn't this the elite liquid found in rabbit meat? Could it be? As he was thinking, the ground suddenly shook. Suyu felt the sky become lower, and the ground quickly collapsed. No. The hill under his feet was rising at an alarming speed. Soon, he was 10,000 feet high in the sky. A long, round body came into view. On the ground, 3 figures screamed in terror, "Run, it's the Snake King!" The hill Suyu was on was actually the head of a giant snake. At this moment, the snake's head was raised high, coldly staring at the 3 figures. One of them dived down. Boom! The ground shook violently, and the 3 figures were crushed into dust by the snake's head. Suyu was shocked, and he immediately hugged the densely packed hair on the giant snake's body. Suddenly, Suyu froze. How could a snake have hair? Hiss, until a sharp hissing sound could be heard. He looked, only to find that the hair he was hugging was bending. The roots of the hair drilled out of the ground, revealing a ferocious snake head. He was not the only one. The other trees were the same. It turned out that those were not hair at all. They were snakes, their bodies inserted into the Snake King's body. Now that they were awakened by Suyu's presence, they revealed their original forms and surrounded him. Each of the snakes was thicker than Suyu. With hundreds of snakes surrounding him, Suyu was not enough for them. Fortunately, they had just revealed their original forms, and their movements were slow. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Suyu stepped on their bodies and fled down the mountain. Before the giant snake began to slither away, he jumped down from its body. The Snake King did not notice and continued to slither forward. With just a gentle slither, it instantly left Suyu's line of sight and disappeared without a trace. Suyu was left with a face full of fear. Where exactly am I? Suyu was at a loss. Why was everything he saw so absurd and bizarre? He looked at the 3 figures on the ground that had been reduced to a pile of meat. He picked up the bow of the person in the middle. He took a closer look at the bow and found that there were 3 words carved on it. Tianyi Bao. Suyu's eyes were filled with confusion. Tianyi Bao? I feel like I've met you before. He seemed to have encountered it somewhere before. However, having a bow and arrow was still a good thing. It's easier to kill small animals. After the short activity just now, he found that he was hungry again. Where should I go? Suyu asked as he surveyed his surroundings. In the end, he chose to go in the opposite direction of the Snake King. He did not want to encounter the Snake King, otherwise it would be very dangerous. Just like that, he wandered aimlessly. Occasionally, they would run into some wild rabbits, pheasants, and other small animals, and they had to rely on the Tianyi Bao to kill them. However, they were unable to completely fill their stomach. I'll be hungry soon. As time passed, Suyu lost track of how far he had walked. He was exhausted with hunger and his eyes were spinning. A city appeared at the end of his line of sight. Then, he came to the gate of the city immediately. On the horizontal board of the city gate, there were a few complete characters written on it. Zhenlong City. Suyu murmured. He also found the name familiar. It seemed he had seen it somewhere before. Standing at the gate of the city, Suyu looked into the city and found all the people in the city were human beings with blurred faces and weird shape. Their skin was dull, like ashy white. Also, all of them were wearing the same white clothes. It seemed someone had died here. Everyone in the city was wearing mourning clothes. It gave people a chilling feeling of strangeness. After hesitating for a while, Suyu decided to enter the city to see whether he could find food. However, when he was about to enter the city, someone grabbed his wrist. When he turned around, he saw a beautiful girl in a long red dress was grabbing his wrist. The girl was very beautiful. She was like a fairy with a face that could drive people crazy. She shook her head and said in a low voice, "That is a place where people are eaten. Don't go there." Hearing her voice, the noisy Zhenlong city fell into dead silence all of a sudden. Yes, dead silence. It seemed all the sounds were cut off by a sharp sword. All the people in the city stopped. They turned their heads to look at Suyu and the girl in the red dress who were standing at the gate of the city. Then, all of them rushed out of the city while screaming, "Let's go!" The girl grabbed Suyu and ran away quickly. She was so strong that she grabbed Suyu as if he was a bag of cotton. Also, she ran very fast. The arrows that were shot at them from behind were not as fast as her. After several breaths, the city disappeared from their sight. At last, they couldn't see it anymore. However, the excited and chilling screams could still be heard. After running for a long time, the girl in the red dress stopped at last. She wiped the cold sweat off her forehead while gasping for breath. Then, she took out 2 red peonies. She ate one and gave the other to Suyu. After eating it, Suyu felt his body was warm and his hunger was gone. At the same time, his body was filled with great strength. He had a feeling he could lift a hill. "Who are you?" Suyu asked as he looked at the girl in front of him. She was the only person in this world who could see her real face and body. "Me." The girl looked at Suyu and said with a smile, "I am Xiaoya." "Xiaoya?" Suyu was confused. He found the name familiar. "Have we met before?" Suyu asked. The girl nodded. "Yes." Suyu was delighted. "Are we friends?" "No." The girl shook her head. Just as Suyu was feeling disappointed, the girl suddenly opened her arms and hugged Suyu, burying her head in his chest. "I am your wife," the girl cried. "Wife?" Suyu was shocked. "Xiaoya is my wife?" Xiaoya pulled Suyu and said, "Let's go. I will take you to see my father." Suyu had nowhere to go, so he let her pull him to a faraway place. On the way, Suyu couldn't help but ask, "Xiaoya, what is this place? Why is everyone but you and me blurry?" Suyu couldn't help but ask. Xiaoya explained, "This place is called Memory City. Only the dead come here." She looked at Suyu deeply. Suyu's expression was very calm. He sighed and said, "I am really dead." "Yes, you are dead. Everything you see is your memory from when you were alive." Xiaoya lowered her head. Her eyes were filled with apology. "Because of your death, these memories have become distorted, blurry, and crazy. That is why their faces are blurry and their bodies are strange." Suyu suddenly understood. However, he looked at Xiaoya strangely. "Then why are you clear?" Chapter 27:11. Because I am your wife, the person you remember the most. Xiaoya hugged Suyu's arm and said with a smile, "Is that so?" Suyu felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't figure out what it was. "Come home with me, our daughter is waiting for us," Xiaoya said with a sweet smile. "Home? Daughter?" Suyu's heart skipped a beat as if he had thought of something, but it was just a flash of inspiration. The memory was completely blurred again. 10 days later, Xiaoya took Suyu to a faraway place. It was no longer a dark wilderness. Instead, it was a green bamboo forest. There was an exquisite manor in the forest. In the manor, a young girl whose face couldn't be seen clearly was playing happily. When she saw Suyu, she immediately came up to him and threw herself into his arms. "Father!" Suyu felt very unfamiliar, but he nodded calmly. "Oh! Father, don't you recognize me? I am Su Kai'er. Su Kai'er?" Suyu felt very familiar. "Father, didn't you bring me a gift when you went hunting?" Su Kai'er said with dissatisfaction. Suyu took off the tiani bow from his back and handed it to Su Kai'er. "This is for you." Su Kai'er smiled sweetly. "Thank you, Father." After a pause, she took out a palm-sized oil lamp. "I found this on the ground. It's for you, Father." An old oil lamp? Suyu took it. The moment he touched it, he felt a sense of kinship. It was as if the oil lamp was a part of him. "Husband, don't think so much. Let's eat first." Xiaoya pulled him in. The family of 3 sat at the table and ate. "Father, you have worked hard. Eat more." Su Kai'er was very obedient, putting food into Suyu's bowl. Xiaoya looked at him from time to time with a deep sense of happiness on her face. Suyu felt an indescribable sense of comfort. A small courtyard, a bamboo forest, a wife, a daughter, a warm and comfortable life. There was no intrigue, no conspiracy, no enemies. This scene was very familiar. Or maybe it was what he had dreamed of. Whatever. Wasn't it good to live like this? "Husband, from now on, you stay at home with Kai'er, and I will go hunting." Xiaoya had a meaningful look in her eyes. Suyu shook his head. "How can I do that? I'm a man. I should be the one to support this family." Xiaoya's eyes welled up with tears. However, he was not moved. It was sour. The next day, Su Yu, Xiaoye, and Su Kai'er went out to hunt in the outside world. After a whole day, he had gained a lot. As the number of prey increased, Su Yu's power became stronger and stronger. A year later, he would be able to run faster than lightning. They could even occasionally fly off the ground. "Wife, if I fly, will I become a fairy?" Su Yu asked Xiaoye with a smile. She smiled and shook her head. Then, she nodded and said, "You will. You will fly very, very far." Su Yu revealed a satisfied smile. "If I can fly, I will surely take you with me." Hearing this, Xiaoye only smiled. In a corner that Su Yu couldn't see, a look of disappointment flashed across her face. The peaceful days lasted for several years. Su Yu was used to hunting every day and accompanying his wife and daughter. He felt that it was good to continue living like this. There was no need to explore that door any further. However, until a day of thunderstorms, a bolt of lightning flashed. Hundreds of black shadows surrounded the house in the darkness of the night. Su Yu got up in alarm. He found that Xiaoye had already woken up. She was standing on the roof, staring at the surroundings. "Wife, who are those people?" Xiaoye said with a complicated expression, "Some people who will eat people." After saying this, Xiaoye jumped down and fought with the shadows under the lightning without a care for herself. Su Yu did not wait for death. He rushed out. As soon as he went over, the group of shadows went crazy as if they were possessed, all pouncing toward Su Yu. Their attacks were very strange. The strangest thing was that some of them could really fly. However, the most powerful one was a person holding a golden long sword. He stabbed out with his sword, exploding with golden flames. Xiaoye was careless and was injured by the golden flames. Su Yu rushed over and protected her in front of him. He shouted, "All of you, get lost!" With a roar, he quickly struck out. The shadows were very weak in his hands. They were killed with one touch. An hour later, Su Yu was exhausted, but everyone had been killed. After they died, they gradually turned pale and disappeared from the earth. Only the golden crystal long sword was left on the ground. Su Yu picked it up and couldn't help but murmur, "The limitless karmic flame long sword? Why did it sound familiar again?" After thinking about it, Su Yu threw it away and wrapped his arm around Xiaoye's waist. "I don't want to think about these things anymore. I just want to spend every day with you." However, ever since then, their peaceful life had been completely broken. Every once in a while, a group of people would besiege them. Moreover, the people who appeared became more and more powerful. From the initial ease of dealing with them, it became extremely difficult. During the last time, Xiaoye was even injured and bedridden. Su Yu sat in front of the window, taking care of Xiaoye, whose face was gradually turning pale. He said worriedly, "Wife, tomorrow I will go hunt the Snake King and use its gallbladder to replenish your body." Xiaoye smiled weakly and shook her head. "No. I don't want you to do dangerous things for me." Su Yu nodded. However, the next morning, he still set off to find the Snake King. Now that he could fly, he could travel 10,000 miles in a day. The Snake King's huge body made it very easy to find him. Half a day later, he found a hill. It was the Snake King. The Snake King also found Su Yu. It suddenly raised its head and spat a mouthful of black venom at Su Yu. Su Yu dodged it carefully and jumped onto the Snake King's head. He clenched his fist and punched it hard. All of a sudden, a pit was formed on the snake's head. The Snake King was furious and used all its skills to fight with Su Yu. Su Yu was not discouraged. He tried his best to deal with it. Finally, after 3 days and 3 nights, the Snake King's skin and flesh were torn open. It could not bear it anymore and fell to the ground. Su Yu was pleased. He moved his body with difficulty and cut open the Snake King's stomach to take out the gallbladder. However, he did not find the gallbladder. There was only a small cauldron the size of a palm where the gallbladder should be. 9 lifelike dragons were carved on the small cauldron. Suyu had a complicated look in his eyes as he threw it to the ground. For many years, every time he killed a group of people, he would always get a weapon from them. Every one of them gave him a sense of déjà vu. Some fragmented memories flashed in his mind from time to time. He had a feeling that, if he could get more of those memories, perhaps he would have to say goodbye to his life in the bamboo forest. Therefore, every time he got a weapon, he would throw it away. Looking at the giant corpse of the Snake King in front of him, Suyu carried it back. Chapter 27:12. Suyu's heart tightened, and he immediately went to the bed. Xie Xiaoya's breathing was weak, and her face was extremely pale. Suyu immediately took out a piece of Snake King meat and stuffed it into Xie Xiaoya's mouth. However, her complexion did not improve in the slightest. No need. Xie Xiaoya smiled bitterly. Haven't you noticed that my body has been weakening since the beginning? Being injured at that time only accelerated his weakening. Suyu was silent. He had discovered it long ago. From the first day they came into contact with Xie Xiaoya, he noticed that her body was growing dimmer by the day. When they first met, she was wearing a red dress, but now the dress she was wearing was a little dim. Husband, do you still remember how long it has been since you woke up? Xie Xiaoya asked. Suyu said, 10 years. Determination flashed through Xie Xiaoya's eyes as if she had decided on something. Kai come here. Su Kai immediately knelt in front of the bed and sobbed. Husband, it's been 10 years. Have you ever wondered why our child is always so big? Suyu was silent. He wasn't blind, so how could he not see Su Kai's strange behavior? Suyu, go and open that door. Xie Xiaoya pulled open the bedside table with difficulty. All of the weapons placed inside were weapons that Suyu had picked up in the past. There was even a small cauldron with 9 dragons carved on it. Bring these, said Xie Xiaoya. Suyu shook his head. I won't go anywhere. I will just stay here and accompany you. Xie Xiaoya smiled and leaned in his arms with tears of sorrow and reluctance in her eyes. Gradually, she let out a heart-wrenching cry. It was as if they were going to be separated forever. Suyu, thank you for granting me my long-cherished wish of 10 years. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Xie Xiaoya said. Suyu felt that it was strange. When he looked down, Xie Xiaoya's face, which was originally very clear, started to blur. Wife, what happened? Suyu asked anxiously. Xie Xiaoya muttered, I'm sorry, Suyu. I lied to you. I'm not your wife. Your wife and your daughter are on the other side of the door. Everything you've experienced is, in fact, fake. As if in response to her words, the bamboo forest dispersed and the manor disappeared. Su Kai also turned into mist and dissipated. All that was left was a gray world. The bed that Xie Xiaoya was lying on turned into a cold floor. Suyu hugged Xie Xiaoya tightly. It was as if he had a premonition that they were going to part. His heart was filled with sorrow. I know everything. There were so many flaws, so many strange things. How could he not know? How could he not think? However, he did not want to destroy that rare peace and warmth. As expected of you, even though you are in the sinkhole and your consciousness is sealed, you are still so smart and able to see through everything. Xie Xiaoya's face became more and more blurry. Soon, her facial features would be blurry. Xie Xiaoya pushed him away and revealed the last smile of her life. Suyu, go and find your real life. She maintained her smile. Thank you for using 10 years to make up for my regrets. Goodbye, my love. After saying that, Xie Xiaoya's facial features were completely blurred. Even the smile on his face disappeared. Her body slowly became transparent, and like Su Kai she turned into mist. He disappeared before Suyu's eyes. Disappeared from his life. Suyu tried to pull her back with both of his hands, but all he grabbed was air. Xiaoyu! Xiaoyu! Suyu screamed at the top of his lungs. His heart felt like it was being cut by a knife. He looked at the empty world, at the wife, daughter, and home that he had suddenly lost. Su Yu's heart was filled with sorrow. He sat where he was, looking at the blood-red sky, tears streaming down his face. Suddenly, as he looked at it, Su Yu found 3 vague words in the clouds in the sky. The world of Sinkhole. Is this the world of Sinkhole? Su Yu murmured. Where did Xiao Yu go? Will we ever meet again? One day and one night later, Su Yu finally got up. His face was a little disappointed, lost, and listless as he walked towards the ancient door that he had seen in the first place. The door was still the same door. But when Su Yu pushed it gently, the door creaked. Inside the door, dazzling sunlight shone. Su Yu closed his eyes subconsciously, feeling very warm. He opened his eyes little by little. What came into view was a bamboo forest and a manor. This is... Su Yu was startled, a little excited. Could it be husband? The person outside the door shouted in surprise when she heard the noise. Su Yu's heart was beating fast, and he couldn't help but shout, Xiao Yu. However, the person who walked in was not Xie Xiaoye, but a beautiful woman with an exquisite face. At the same time, his mind was swollen, and many memories surged into his consciousness like a tide. Everything came back to him. He fought with the Time Master and was plotted against by the Red Dust Path Master, so he chose to commit suicide to save his daughter Su Kai. He should have died, but now he was alive again. Am I not dead? Su Yu asked the beautiful woman in front of him. He had already remembered that she was Qin Xiener. She was his real wife. Qin Xiener threw herself into his arms in surprise, and said with tears of joy, The Demon Emperor came to this world and rebuilt your heart with the heart of the Emperor. The Demon Emperor, the heart of the world? Su Yu didn't care about these things. How long have I been asleep? Su Yu asked. Qin Xiener said, 10 years. Su Yu's heart skipped a beat. 10 years. In the world of Sinkhole, he and Xie Xiaoye spent 10 years as husband and wife. He had a very bad feeling in his heart. Xiener, where is Xie Xiaoye? Su Yu asked. Qin Xiener's body stiffened, and she bit her lips. She lowered her head and said, She sacrificed herself for you. Dong. Su Yu's pupils shrank to the size of a needle. He felt as if his heart had been stabbed. Sacrificed? Su Yu said in a daze. Qin Xiener looked apologetic. She had promised Xie Xiaoye that she would not tell Su Yu that she had died. However, Qin Xiener could not keep it a secret. Her sacrifice for Su Yu should be known by Su Yu. Xie Xiaoye sacrificed her body to release the Demon Emperor, and she sacrificed her soul to resolve your petrification. Su Yu was in a daze for a long time. When he came back to his senses, he immediately performed the resurrection from the dead. However, it was to no avail. He did not believe it, so he performed it again and again. Even though his body had just recovered from a serious illness, he did not want to stop trembling. Qin Xiener pressed his hand with tears in her eyes. Brother Su Yu, don't torture yourself. Miss Xiaoye has died. Su Yu stopped in a daze. Scenes from 10 years ago appeared in his mind. It was the world of Sinkhole, a place where he and Xie Xiaoye should have been. However, Xie Xiaoye did not want Su Yu to be lonely for 10 years, so that he would not be lost in the world of Sinkhole, so that he would not be lonely for 10 years. She gave him the courage and purpose to survive, until his consciousness could leave the world of Sinkhole and return to his body. Chapter 27:13. Not a single trace of it was forgotten. Xiaoye. Su Yu's hands trembled slightly. His heart was filled with boundless sorrow. What followed was anger, killing intent, and monstrous resentment. Where is the Red Dust Path Master? Su Yu stood up slowly, his whole body emitting an ice-cold aura. Qin Xiener said, Little Yu has already been granted the Demon Emperor's death. Su Yu's murderous intent did not diminish. What about the future incarnation of the Time Sovereign? He asked again. Qin Xiener shook her head. After he escaped, he went into hiding. No one knows where he is now. Hide? Su Yu wished he could skin the Time Master alive. It was all the Time Sovereign's fault. He was the one who had killed Xiaoya. Creak. He clenched his fists and was about to take a step forward. However, his legs were incomparably heavy and didn't listen to him. He almost fell over. Qin Xianer supported him and said, "Husband, I know how you feel. I also hope to avenge Sister Xiaoyu, but please take care of yourself first. The Demon Emperor said that you are the fusion of the mortal body and the Son of Heaven's heart. Your body has just fused, so you need time to adapt." Su Yu found it difficult to quell his hatred. He only looked at Qin Xianer, who took care of his feelings, tolerated him, and understood him. Su Yu's heart was filled with warmth and softness. He hugged Qin Xianer and said apologetically, "I'm sorry for giving you the cold shoulder." Qin Xianer shook her head. "Hubby has always been by my side. How could a good girl like little sister you be neglected?" Su Yu thought for a moment, then told Qin Xianer everything that had happened during his 10 years of slumber. This was a sign of respect for her. Qin Xianer's expression stiffened for a moment, and it was only after a long while that she calmed down. She lay in Su Yu's embrace and said, "I'm very upset, but if it's Sister Xiaoya, I can try to accept it." Xiaoya had given up everything. Was she not allowed to stay in the Void Realm and accompany Su Yu for 10 years as his wife? After that, Qin Xianer hugged Su Yu even tighter. "Also, I'm very happy that you didn't hide it from me." Qin Xianer suddenly felt safe. Su Yu could hide it from her, but he still chose to tell her. That was because he had her in his heart. Su Yu patted her back and said softly, "I'm sorry for making you suffer." In the next few days, Su Yu suppressed the killing intent in his heart and tried his best to adapt to his new body. The Demon Emperor said that it was only his heart that had changed. Actually, it wasn't. His body had also undergone earth-shattering changes. Before this, his body wasn't that strong. However, at this moment, his physique was too strong. If he wasn't careful and didn't control his strength properly, he could cause devastating damage. The walking stick in his hand was a 4-star Dao artifact. However, in the past few days, he had already crushed quite a few of them. If it had been in the past, how could he have possibly crushed a 4-star Dao artifact? Even a half-star Dao artifact could not be destroyed by his physique alone. Based on initial estimations, the toughness of his physique was very likely to have reached the level of an Earth Lord. Moreover, as time passed, the strength of his physique continued to increase. Besides that, his cultivation base had also skyrocketed. He was originally at the peak of Nirvana Void, but now he was at the peak of Nirvana Void. He directly skipped the Void Nirvana realm. He was only a step away from reaching the Daolord realm. The reason he was able to reach this stage was probably because his body had been completely smeared with the blood of that saint body. However, the changes in his body and cultivation were not the most eye-catching. The most surprising thing was Su Yu's heart moved, and the ancient oil lamp appeared above his head. Before he died, the oil lamp had already run out of oil, and the flame had been extinguished. At this moment, the flame was unprecedentedly strong. A steady stream of lamp oil gathered in the oil lamp. This was the effect of the Emperor's heart. There was a large amount of Emperor's blood in the Emperor's heart. After fusing with Su Yu's body, he had the Emperor's blood in his body. Therefore, there was no need for external Emperor's blood. He only needed to move his heart, and the Emperor's blood would be supplied to the oil lamp. However, the drawbacks were obvious. That was, Su Yu would feel extreme exhaustion in his heart, and his whole body would become uncomfortable, unable to move. Therefore, it was only suitable to use it in some special life and death situations. Under normal circumstances, it was best not to use the blood in the Emperor's heart. "Husband, what do you plan to do with the time domain bloodline?" Qin Xianer took out a container. It contained the bloodline of the Time Master. As long as one had the bloodline of the Time Master, he could absorb it and reach the Yuan level of the domain. "What about the Star Rain Empress?" Su Yu asked. She had dreamed of becoming the Time Master all her life. Now, her wish could be fulfilled. Her? She has left with several other Time Masters to go to other Master domains to persuade them to stop the war and stop the Master's plot to destroy the defense formation. Suyu was surprised. She doesn't want the position of the Time Master anymore? Qin Xian'er smiled. She doesn't want it anymore. In the Time domain, except for Nanming City, which is still intact, the rest is in ruins. It's useless even if she says it. That little girl. Suyu was amused. She had worked so hard for her whole life, but she suddenly gave it up. I think she just can't bear to let you go, Qin Xian'er said quietly. Suyu asked, why do you say that? Qin Xian'er said, your battle with the Time Master has exposed your identity as the successor of the ancient god Jiulong. If she becomes the Time Master, can you still live in peace? Of course, she couldn't. The Masters and the ancient gods were eternal enemies. For husband, she doesn't even want the position of the Time Master. Her heart is really deep, Qin Xian'er said with jealousy. Suyu touched her nose and said, I only see her as a younger sister. Qin Xian'er pouted slightly. She doesn't necessarily see you as a brother. Suyu smiled but didn't say anything. By the way, why don't I see Kai-er? Suyu missed her. He hadn't seen Su Kai-er for a few days after he woke up. Could it be that she still hated him? She left, Qin Xian'er said with a complicated look. Suyu was surprised. Where did she go? Where could she go now that the war was in full swing? She went to live her own life. Qin Xian'er sighed. She didn't have the face to see you, so she wanted to go out and train to repay her guilt. Suyu was startled. Silly child. As a parent, would you blame your child? Qin Xian'er had accepted it. She will leave us sooner or later. Now, it's just a matter of bringing it forward. Suyu thought about it and nodded. Under the protection of him and Qin Xian'er, Su Kai-er would never grow up. Only through training could she grow up quickly. The two of them were talking. A clear and urgent voice came from outside the courtyard. I heard that you have woken up, so I came to pay you a visit. It was the descendant of the Space Master, Yanran. Su Yu's expression became solemn. I guess the Space Master has passed away, or is about to pass away. Chapter 27:14. Come in, Suyu said. Yanran happily entered. Seeing that Suyu had really woken up, his face beamed with joy, and he knelt down on one knee and said, Greetings, Senior. Suyu stared at her and said, You should already know my identity. Is it really appropriate for you to continue worshipping me? Yanran did not care at all. The grudge between ancient god Nine Dragon and the 8 gods is a matter of the previous generation. It has nothing to do with our generation. His words were based on the fact that Suyu was powerful enough. If he was as weak as he was when he first came to the 8-star civilization, what awaited him would not be these words. In addition, when has the hegemon ever treated us as his true descendants? Yanran laughed bitterly. She had personally experienced the turbulence of the time domain. He completely understood the sovereign's true intentions. In their eyes, the so-called descendants were just tools to be used. Using their strength, he could destroy the seal of the 8-star civilization. Is that why you're here, and I'll help you become the Space Master? Suyu asked. However, Yanran shook her head. The successor of the Space Dominus has already been decided. I no longer have any extravagant hope. Yanran had a disappointed look on her face. What? Suyu was secretly surprised. In the 10 years of slumber, the 8-star civilization had been turned upside down. Perhaps it was because of Empress Star Rain's persuasion that the descendants of the hegemons weren't willing to be used. Thus, the other 7 hegemons changed their strategy. He directly appointed a successor to the hegemon position. I came to ask Senior to save me, Yanran said. At that moment, Suyu realized that there was something wrong with Yanran's aura. Are you injured? Suyu's gaze became sharp. She replied sweetly, Yes, the Space Dominator has already issued a warrant for my arrest, and I'm currently being injured by the fragments of Heaven's carefree son of Heaven's clone. Fragment of a doppelganger? Suyu walked over and lifted Yenran's clothes. His skin was colorful, visible to the naked eye. This was exactly the same injury he had suffered when he was struck by the Emperor's ruler. That fragment was obviously in Xiaohao's hands, so why did it fall into the hands of the Space Master? Suyu asked as he squinted his eyes. There was only one answer. It was given to him by the Time Dominus. Xiaohao was the Time Sovereign's chosen successor, so the things he had lost before his death were most likely in the Time Sovereign's hands. He then thought about how the Time Chief Sovereign and the Space Chief Sovereign had once made peace with each other. The hiding place of the Time Dominus couldn't be any clearer. Space Domain. Senior, that fragment followed me to the Time Domain, and I don't know where it is hiding. Please protect my life. Yenran said nervously. I am willing to repay you as a slave. Suyu shook his head and said calmly, You helped me in the past, so it's only right that I protect your life. You don't have to thank me again. As he spoke, Suyu placed his palm on Yenran's body. Possessing the Emperor's heart, it was exceptionally easy for Xiao Chen to resolve the Emperor's ruler's injuries. After a few breaths, all the colorful scars on Yenran's body disappeared. Yenran felt that her body had recovered and was overjoyed. She kowtowed and thanked him profusely. I will never forget Senior's kindness. She was extremely glad that she had gotten to know Suyu. Moreover, she was very determined to follow him. Now that he was in trouble, the other party resolved it with a wave of his hand. I told you that you don't have to thank me. Suyu looked up at the sky. In a place that ordinary people couldn't see, the two men in bamboo hats were moving forward as if they were teleporting. In a single breath, he traversed an extremely long space and headed straight for this place. When they reached the southern border of the dream-broken world, they finally stopped. Young ruler, if we go any further, we'll reach the location of the holy mortal body, the bamboo hat man said gravely. The former stopped abruptly. He pulled down his bamboo hat, his eyes filled with hostility. Holy mortal body? The bamboo hat man sneered. A holy mortal body whose life and death are unknown? The other bamboo hat man's face changed slightly, and he quickly shut up. Young ruler, be careful that the holy mortal body hears you. The young ruler chuckled. So what if he hears me? I didn't harm him. I'm here to look for that bitch, Yenran. It seemed to be responding to his words. A wave of space fluctuation suddenly flickered in front of him. Suyu stepped out of the space with the help of his walking stick. He looked at the two men in bamboo hats in front of him indifferently and said, It's not a good habit to talk about people behind their backs. The two men in bamboo hats were startled. Middle-grade space domain? The young ruler was shocked. His face gradually turned pale, and finally, it was ashen. In this world, apart from the Space Master and his descendants, those who were proficient in the space domain, there was another person. The descendant of the ancient god Jilong, Suyu, who was also the holy mortal body. Suyu? The young ruler gasped. His mind was completely blank. There were too many legends about Suyu, the holy mortal body. It was said that the Time Master was almost crushed by the holy mortal body. It was said that he was invincible among the 8-star civilizations. It was said that even the 8 great rulers were no match for him. Countless mysterious rumors cast a layer of mystery on the holy mortal body that could not be washed away. It was chilling. So much so that for 10 years, the southern part of the dream-broken realm of the time domain had always been a forbidden place, because there was a terrifying holy mortal body sleeping in this place. No one knew when he would wake up, whether he would wake up or not. No matter how chaotic the other 7 regions were, no forces dared to set foot in the southern part of the dream-broken realm. This place had become a forbidden place. The young ruler never dreamed that he would encounter an awakened holy mortal body. Thank you for remembering me, Suyu said calmly. Tell me, what are you doing in my territory? Plop. The young ruler broke out in a cold sweat. Su Yu's words were very calm, without any pressure. However, when they fell into the ears of the young ruler, it was as if they were majestic. Su! Holy mortal body Su, I am here to find my sister, Yenran. I have no intention of disturbing you. Yenran, right? Su Yu said lightly. With a wave of his hand, Yenran immediately appeared beside him. When the two sides met, their eyes immediately turned red. The young ruler bowed and said, "Thank you, holy mortal body Su." However, Su Yu had no intention of handing him over. He said lightly, "Yenran is my friend. Who do you think you are? I will hand her over to you." What? The young ruler's body trembled. Holy mortal body Su's friend? Yenran cast a smug look at him, feeling extremely relieved. The young ruler hurriedly lowered his head. "I don't know. I will leave now." Su Yu said coldly, "Did I say you could leave?" The young ruler suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. Yenran did not give him the holy mortal body Su Yu, nor did she let him go. She did not come with good intentions. He could not help but regret in his heart. Why did he come? "Let me ask you a question," Su Yu said. "If I am satisfied, I will let you go." "Please go ahead, senior," the young ruler said hurriedly. Su Yu said indifferently, "Is the Time Master hiding in your space domain?" The young ruler rolled his eyes and was about to answer when Su Yu added, "You only have one chance to answer, so think carefully before you speak." Ordinary descendants of the rulers might not know these inside stories. The heir of the Space Master should know something. "Yes. I am with the Space Master in the half-real realm he created." Sure enough. Chapter 27:15. In that case, he had to go to the space area. Staring at the young master in front of him, Su Yu said, "Yenran, extract his space bloodline." Yenran was ecstatic. The young master's face changed abruptly. His eyes flashed as he took out a treasure of the Space Master. With a swoosh, he was ready to escape. Humph! Su Yu lightly tapped with his crutch, and a 9-colored ray of light blocked the 4 dimensions of heaven and earth. At the same time, it crashed down and pressed down on the young master. Yenran immediately went up and extracted the bloodline of the space area and absorbed it. Her space domain immediately reached a high level. He has already absorbed the bloodline of several space masters. Yenran wanted to laugh. In the end, didn't he make a wedding dress for her? Su Yu tapped with his crutch and withdrew the power of the holy mortal body. He waved his hand and said, "You can go now." He didn't have a deep hatred with the Space Master. He had no enmity with the descendants of the Space Master. It was enough to extract the bloodline. There was no need to kill him. The young master felt as if he had been pardoned. Losing the bloodline made him desperate, but it was better than losing his life. "Thank you for your kindness, senior." The young master quickly retreated under the protection of his followers. Su Yu was about to turn back. Suddenly, he stopped in his tracks. He looked back into the distance. A patch of red cloud flew over. There were a few sage-like old men standing on top of it, as well as a few youths glowing with divine light. They stopped in front of the young master. Without a second word, he attacked on the spot and killed the young ruler and his follower. Then they came in front of Su Yu. "Holy body Su!" The cloud descended, and several elders led a group of young heroes to salute Su Yu. "You are?" Su Yu asked. The elder in front smiled and said, "I am Jean Fian, the Deputy Master of the Heavenly Court. Behind me are the elders and disciples of the Heavenly Court. We have come to pay a visit to Holy Body Su." Heavenly Court? The descendants of the 8 great ancient gods? When the 8 great masters were alive, they rarely showed up. Now, the 8 great masters were either dead or destroyed, and the entire 8-star civilization was in chaos. Only then did they dare to show up. The young master of the space area has been deprived of his bloodline. Why kill more? Su Yu asked. Zhang Fei Yen laughed hoarsely. How could holy physique Su not know the principle of not killing a snake when you hit it? I'm doing this for Sage Su's own good, lest he retaliates against you in the future. Really? Su Yu's eyes were filled with regret. He had already spared the young ruler of the space, but the young ruler's luck was not good. He had still encountered someone from the heavenly court and was brutally killed. After pausing for a moment, Zhang Fian looked at Yanran, who was beside Su Yu. His gaze sharpened as he said, "Sacred physique Su, it's best not to nurture a tiger that will only bring calamity. The descendants of the 8 sovereigns are mostly treacherous and treacherous. If you keep them by your side, they will definitely be a threat." Su Yu furrowed his brows. "Did you come here to teach me how to behave?" Zhang Fian chuckled. "You are too kind. I'm just doing my duty to remind you." "Alright, why did you come here to look for me?" Su Yu asked. There were only a few people who knew that he had woken up. He didn't believe that the heavenly court knew that he had awakened before they came. It was very likely that they thought that Su Yu was still in a deep sleep, so they came in large numbers. Zhang Fian's expression was as usual. She cupped her fists and said, "We are here to pay a visit to Sacred Physique Su and to invite you to the heavenly court to discuss the great plan. This is the invitation." She took out an unsigned invitation. Su Yu glanced at it casually. "What great plan?" Zhang Fian chuckled. Sacred Physique Su, as the descendant of the ancient god Jiolong, should shoulder the heavy responsibility of expelling the sovereigns and restoring the 8-star civilization. Su Yu's eyes flickered slightly. He took the invitation and said, "Is there anything else?" Zhang Fian glanced at the southern part of the realm of dreams behind Su Yu. She meant that Su Yu didn't even invite them in. "If not, then I won't see you out," Su Yu said lightly. Zhang Fian smiled. "Goodbye." Then, without saying a word, she led the crowd onto the clouds and turned back to leave. After walking far away, a young woman was extremely indignant. "What are you being so arrogant for? You didn't even ask us to stay." "That's right, he doesn't take our heavenly court seriously at all." The smile on Zhang Fian's face quickly disappeared. It was replaced by a trace of indifference. "I didn't expect him to wake up. Originally, I wanted to take the divine 9-dragon cauldron that belongs to the heavenly court while he was unconscious." Zhang Fian finally revealed her true intentions. That invitation was sent out at the last minute to cover up her purpose, so it didn't even have a signature. "Deputy Court Master, why didn't you ask for it directly?" a young man asked. "I heard that during the great battle, he had already died once, and his oil lamp was extinguished. He may not be able to display the holy mortal body." Zhang Fian said lightly, "What if he can?" A trace of fear slowly fluctuated in her eyes. Only then did the group of young men finally shut up. "You guys go first. I will stay and observe silently to see if his oil lamp is really extinguished and he can't display the holy mortal body." Zhang Fian jumped off the clouds. Little did they know. Su Yu saw everything that was happening in front of him. "I knew you didn't come with good intentions," Su Yu said lightly. He had expected a long time ago that he would one day have conflicts with the people of the heavenly court. Now, he was not surprised. He was the descendant of the ancient god Jiolong, but the people in the heavenly court were the descendants of the ancient god Jiolong. There would be disputes over the ownership of the divine 9-dragon cauldron. Fortunately, he woke up in time. Otherwise, if they really broke into the southern part of the dream-broken realm, Qin Xianer would definitely be affected. Looking at the invitation in his hand, Su Yu's eyes were cold. "You want to discuss the grand plan, right? Fine. As you wish." To dispel their unrealistic ideas, he had better participate. Looking at the date, there were still 5 years left. There was no hurry. "Senior, you have given Yanran a new lease on life. Please tell me what you need." Yanran's domain had reached a high level, and she was extremely grateful. Su Yu said coldly, "Just show me the way." He wanted to go to the space area and find the Time Master for revenge. But now was not the time. The people of the heavenly court were eyeing him covetously, so he needed to be fully prepared. "Follow me," Su Yu said. Back at the side yard, Su Yu secretly recuperated while silently preparing to integrate all the energy in his body. On this day, Su Yu suddenly had an idea. He took out a jade bottle. The multicolored liquid inside was constantly squirming. This was the power of the Emperor's ruler that was used to heal Yanran. Now they were reacting. There could only be one possibility. Prince Xiaoyao's clone was nearby. His target was Yanran. "You're finally here," Su Yu said lightly. "Now that you've come, don't even think about leaving." Su Yu slammed his hands on the ground, and his whole body disappeared into thin air. When he reappeared, he was in the suburbs of Nanming City. Visible to the naked eye, a Prince Xiaoyao with the upper half of his body was holding the Emperor's ruler. The head's eyes were closed, and there was no consciousness. Oh? Someone deliberately pieced together parts of the fragments? Su Yu's eyes flickered.